show. It is about 6 p.m., so we're getting ready to start. If you'd like to find a seat. We'd just like to remind you that we strongly encourage to wear a mask unless you do have a medical condition or otherwise, or you're able to socially distance. You're welcome to move your chair a little bit if you would like. We do have some disposable masks out at the front table if you would feel more comfortable getting one. Again, we strongly encourage them. But just to get started this evening, I'm Lindsay Madison. I am the President and CEO of your local Fort Scott Area Chamber of Commerce. I would like to give you a warm welcome for coming this evening. We greatly appreciate you all being here and those watching on Facebook Live. We host these to keep everyone informed before going to the polls and know a little bit about more about the candidates that you are casting a vote for. We'd like to start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mark McCoy, past chair of the Chamber Board, is going to lead us in that. So, Mark?
Good evening again. Welcome. If you please stand and honor all of us, all citizens of the United States of America. We're going to face the flag and join me by saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'd also just like to thank our volunteers for helping out this evening. We had some greeters at the front door, Chamber Board members Dave White and Jeff Southwell. Our moderator this evening, Katie Casper of Union State Bank. Our timer, Devin Talley, City of Fort Scott. Allie Turvey was going to be doing the Facebook Live, but she ended up not able to join us this evening. And our general overall overseer always wears many hats in the community, Mr. Mark McCoy. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie to take us from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Try not to blow you out of here. I probably don't even need this, but before we begin, I would like to ask all of you, out of respect for our candidates and the people here to hear them, to please silence your cell phones. I know that's something I probably would not have done without a friendly reminder. On behalf of our current county clerk, Kendall Mason, advance voting may begin as early as tomorrow. That's to be announced. When advance voting does begin, the hours are Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30, and then early voting will end at noon on August 3rd. Be sure to bring your ID with you when you go to vote. On election day, you'll vote at your regular polling place from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you don't know where that is, you can call the county clerk's office at 223-3800, extension 802. The form will go in order of federal, state, and then local offices. The candidates' names will be drawn randomly for the order of statements and questions. All questions will be answered from this podium. Individuals representing candidates not in attendance will stay seated in the audience and come to the stage during the time of closing statements, with an opportunity to give up to a 3-minute statement. During the questions for the candidates, they will come up with their group and sit in the chairs behind me. Candidates running unopposed in both the primary and general elections will also give a 3-minute statement versus the question and answer format. I should say question format. We're not getting, these questions have been vetted and so that they will not be taken randomly from the audience. Candidates present with opposition in their race will participate in the following format. Each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 1-minute opening statement. 2 to 3 questions will be asked of each candidate. They will have 90 seconds to answer each one of these questions, and then each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. The Facebook Live recording can be found on the Fort Scott Area Chamber of Commerce's Facebook page. Thank you all again for coming, and I'd like to begin this evening with inviting our candidates for U.S. Senate to come to the stage, please. We'll begin with a 1 minute opening statement, and our first candidate is
Lance? Lance will be our first candidate.
Can you hear me? Oh, gotta get close to it. Hello, Fort Scott. My name is Lance Bourbon. I'm from Abilene, Kansas. It's good to be here tonight. Good to see people involved. People want to know candidates in person. Probably never heard of me. Some of you guys are. But I'm glad to be here. I was called to run in this race by Almighty God. It was a vision I received last September 11th. And very preposterous idea to me at the time. Such circumstances, situations in my life. But I moved forward in faith on September 15th, and I continue in faith. And I look forward to meeting some of you afterwards. If you want to know more about me, I pretty much put it all out there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for 10 months. You get to look into my mind and how I think. Appreciate you checking me out if you're interested. And look forward to your vote on August 4th. You can vote now, and we're going to count the votes on at 7 p.m. on August 4th. So thank you very much.
John Miller.
Good evening, I'm John Miller, and I am running for the U.S. Senate. Thank you to the Fort Scott Area Chamber of Commerce for putting this together and including me in the forum this evening. Grew up in Wichita, went to the University of Kansas, currently live in Overland Park with my bride of 34 years. Raised a few children there, then went to good high schools and on to KU. I became involved in this race at the last minute because I think it's important for the next U.S. Senator for the state of Kansas to focus on the core strengths of Kansas, our agriculture, transportation, manufacturing, and our workforce. I think they're superior. Kansas is well positioned for the future. We need a representative who will deliver to the nation a clear and constant message. And that message is, in my mind, Kansas first. So, again, thank you for having me tonight. I look forward to answering some questions.
Bob Hamilton. Bob Hamilton.
Hello, I am Bob Hamilton. I am the plumber in the race. My dad taught me how to plumb, and in 1983 we started our own business together. My wife and I actually did. And there was just the two of us. And we grew that business to 150 people in our area with high-paying jobs. So I've not only been blessed with, being able to start a business and create a bunch of jobs for people in Kansas, but I have 12 kids, so I am absolutely pro-life. I have 6 boys, 6 girls. I'm married to Teresa for over 40 years, almost 40 years, and she is a saint. So I want to get up to Washington because I think President Trump has to deal with a lot of crap. And I'm a plumber. That's my specialty.
Brian Matlock.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Matlock. I live in Kansas City, Kansas and teach economics at UMKC. How I got into this race was because of the inspiration of my parents. They were the best version of what to me looks like being a good neighbor and a good Republican. They were constantly opening their homes to other people, donating, volunteering, helping out their neighbors. And I believe that we need to take that good neighbor ethics and values to Washington. Right now, what we've seen, like for myself, I started out as a minister and then worked in nonprofits and then ended up studying economics to try to understand what do we do about all of the problems and poverty and things. And so what I want to do is have a healthy, strong economy and figure out ways that we can work together and move past this unproductive partisan trench war to good neighbor values type of politics. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Kobach. I was your Secretary of State for 8 years, and I won't go into a lot of background. I think most of you know who I am, but you also know that I'm conservative and that I do what I say I'm going to do. So when I was your Secretary of State in 2010, I came to Fort Scott, and I said I'd bring us the most secure election system in America, and I delivered. We're the only state in the country that combines photo ID, proof of citizenship, and equivalent security for mail-in ballots. Well, now we've got a crisis at the national level. Our country is under threat from enemies both outside and within, and I'm making more promises, and you know I'll deliver on them. One of the most important ones is immigration. I've been advising President Trump for the past 4.5 years on immigration. I've been employed for the past 1.5 years by We Build the Wall, building private sections of wall, and I represented the ICE agents who sued the Obama administration in 2012. President Trump needs someone who will carry the ball for him in the Senate. The second promise I'll make to you is I will fight against activist judges. We are in a crisis in our country. We need originalist judges who adhere to the original meaning of our Constitution. And I will get that done on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Thank you.
Dave Lindstrom.
Good evening. My name is Dave Lindstrom, and I want to start by saying to those who much is given, much is expected. I have been blessed in my life. I have had a great family, a great education, had an opportunity to play defensive end in the NFL for 9 years, 8 of which with the Kansas City Chiefs, owned my own business, have employed thousands of people in the state of Kansas, and I have, now I'm running for the United States Senate because I believe with all my heart that this country is under attack. What else would you call people calling for socialism and as a way, economic way forward in this country? What else would you call the fact that we have open, we're talking about, people in Washington talking about open borders. We had $27, $26 trillion deficits. I ran my businesses successfully for 25 years, and I wasn't successful by spending more than I took in. Folks, there's no one in this race that will work harder or fight harder for you. Thank you very much.
I believe we're ready for our questions. I will reread the question between each candidate so you have an answer to, or a chance to actually hear them. Our first person is
Brian Matlock.
Brian Matlock. Brian. Rural Kansas has experienced long-term population decline as well as an aging population. What will you do to ensure rural Kansas receives the same priorities in Congress as the more urban areas of the state?
Absolutely. So, first off, we need to get money out of politics. Because right now, big lobbyists are the ones who write a lot of the bills and have a lot of control over what our congresspeople are hearing. I'm the only candidate in this race who has taken a no-pack pledge and will fight for campaign finance reform. Secondly, whenever it comes to big corporations, we roll out the red carpet. When it comes to our local businesses, they roll out the red tape. Like, we have to support local finance, cooperative finance, and local and cooperative businesses so that more of the money is spent in the economy instead of being siphoned off to some corporate headquarters somewhere. And then also, we've seen the takeover of corporate agriculture, which has put these bigger farms kind of gobble up others, but farmers, even though they produce so much more, they're struggling. They're not making so much more. They're further in debt. They're having trouble getting health care. And we need to change the way we're doing it and stop supporting these big corporate conglomerates and focus more on local family and cooperative farming practices that serve more of the domestic economy so we're not as dependent on foreign exports and are able to have a healthier economy. And then, just honestly, immigration is one of the only reasons that certain, okay.
It's time. Thank you.
Chris Kobach.
Chris Kobach. Same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Sure.
Rural Kansas has experienced long-term population decline as well as an aging population. What will you do to ensure rural Kansas receives the same priorities in Congress as the more urban areas of the state?
Well, I have a heart for rural Kansas because I live in rural Kansas. My wife and I and our 5 daughters, Reagan, one of our daughters, our second oldest, is here. Reagan, We live on a small farm, not enough that you can make a living on 175 acres, but we have crops in the field. And the town we live next to is Lecompton. It's a population of about 500. And I deeply care for it. And one thing I want to speak specifically about is the crisis in ranching that I want to deal with. Right now, did you know that in the last 20 years, almost 6,000 Kansas cattle ranches have gone out of business? This is at the same time that the price of steak is at an all-time high at the grocery store. What's going on? It's collusive pricing, it appears to be, between the four big packers who now control 80% of the meat packing industry. Now, there's already an investigation by the Justice Department into that, but I tell you, Congress has to act now, because if we wait another 6 months, it'll be another 500 Kansas cattle ranches out of business. There is a bill in the House that would solve the problem partly by bringing more medium-sized packers back into play in Kansas. That's called the Prime Act. I will push for that in the Senate. Unfortunately, the guy who represents Western Kansas, Roger Marshall, who didn't show up tonight, he is against the Prime Act. You need to know that if you care about ranching. I will push for it. Another bill that will solve the problem is the 5014 bill, which Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa is pushing. I will sign on to that, push for that. That would require the big packers to buy 50% of their cattle on the spot market and take possession within 14 days. Again, I'm for it, Marshall's against it. We have to take a stand now to protect and save the Kansas cattle ranch. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Hamilton.
I agree with Chris. We need to look at the meatpacking plant issue and the price fixing that's going on there. I too live in rural America. I live on a farm, and I have several farms throughout Kansas. I work with 4 different farmers, and so I'm not an expert at ag, but I do talk to them about the ag issues in rural America, and I think that we need to get this country working again, get people back to work, and we need more deregulation that President Trump has been able to give us within the meatpacking plant industry and for our farmers and for businesses. I know that less regulations would help people be able to create more business and create better tax rates. And I think that will get people if we build up the whole economy, everything lifts up with it. And we can get people to back to rural Kansas and help with the broadband issue. I know that I have terrible broadband where I live. I get on Zoom calls and I'm frozen most of the time. So it's very frustrating, and that needs to be looked at in infrastructure and broadband, and let's get this economy going and less regulations.
Thank you.
Lance Breland.
Lance Berlin. Would you like me to repeat the question? Rural Kansas has experienced long-term population decline as well as an aging population. What will you do to ensure rural Kansas receives the same priorities in Congress as the more urban areas of the state?
Rural Kansas. That's what makes Kansas beautiful. And we have nice cities. I like Wichita, I like Topeka, but Kansas is rural. My parents grew up in very small towns. My dad was from DeMar, Kansas, 169 people. And yes, they know how many because there weren't very many. And my mom grew up in Grinnell, Kansas, about 500 people. They met at Fort Hays. That's where I began. But I live on a dirt road. I live in a double wide on a farm, about 83 acres, kind of a ranch. We were racing greyhound breeders. My dad's a Wagyu. He was one of the top Wagyu beef breeders in the world. He just had an auction in Salina, Kansas the other day. Did extremely well. Buyers from all over the world. So we need to free up our farmers to have the incentive to want to be there, because farming life is hard. And it's fairly thankless, even though they're the people that make all the food. And food has to be made. Whole Foods doesn't make your food. Safeway doesn't make your food. Dillard's doesn't make your food. Farmers make your food. Ranchers make your food. So I definitely have their heart, and my family is still very involved in ranching and farming. And I will turn to a lot of those people and my friends to represent them, because we are not elected leaders, we are elected representatives. And I will represent rural Kansas as well as anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. John Miller. Rural Kansas has experienced long-term population decline as well as an aging population. What will you do to ensure rural Kansas receives the same priorities in Congress as the more urban areas of the state?
It's kind of a two-part question in my mind. One of the things about agriculture today is technology has advanced to the point where farmers out west jump in their John Deere tractor, they hit the GPS button, and they're off and running. The tractor's doing the work, the technology's there, which in turn creates the need for fewer people on farms. So the descendants that take the farm over, they move into the city because you don't need as many people on the farm. The healthcare issue that's also in there is a major issue because as that population gets older in Western Kansas, and people move out of Western Kansas, you've got a healthcare crisis. So I kind of thought about that. In my mind, you're almost going to have to set up your rural medical facilities almost like a triage facility and think about helicopter service. If you're in Tribune, Kansas, you're closer to Denver than you are to Salem or Wichita. As far as Kansas agriculture, there needs to be a clear and consistent voice in Washington that says tariffs are a threat to the economy of Kansas and all Kansas. Thank you.
Dave Lindstrom.
Folks, when I retired from the Chiefs in 1986, I could have lived anywhere in the country. My wife and I chose to live here in Kansas because we thought, we believe, we still know today that this is the best place to live, to work, and to raise a family. With that said, what I would do as a member of the U.S. Senate is I would serve on the Ag Committee, I would serve on transportation, and I would ask to serve on small business. All three areas are areas where I think either Kansas needs a senator in those positions, or I have a background for it. I was a county commissioner in Johnson County, representing rural Johnson County for 10 years, so I know what it was like. I know what the need for infrastructure and good roads are. Southeast Kansas, when Highway 69 was widened, that was an economic boom for this part of the state, and it was necessary. So I think transportation, agriculture, and small business all intertwine. And then I would say something that was also already said. What made me stay here was the quality of life. The quality of life in big cities have amenities that rural areas do not have. But that the rural areas have the quality of life that the urban areas don't have. So we need to bring broadband to those areas so that you can start a business. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to be in a storefront on Main Street. You can be out on a farm and be selling products on the internet. So that's what those are the things that I would do.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our second question. Or do we have one more in the bowl? I think we got everybody. Lance Berlin. Second question. What do you think is the most important issue facing our state and nation that Congress must deal with now?
We are under attack from within, from without. And the most important issue is that we get representatives that actually work for the people, that know the people, that understand the struggle of the people, and that understand the vast majority of Americans still believe in the Republic, they believe in Christian values, Judeo-Christian values. They want to be people of goodwill, good sense, and there's a very noisy, boisterous media that is not on the side of the people. They're censoring our books, they're burning our books. They just happen to be digital books on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and we need people that'll go up there to Washington and delve into that swamp and they will be transparent. They will tell the people the truth every time, no matter how uncomfortable that would make someone in their own party or in another party. And if we would start telling people the truth, then we could start taking the right actions and actually solving some problems. But the biggest problem that we have in America is that we've been lied to for over 100 years by a lot of people in a lot of powerful places. I will do everything I can to make that stop. So.
Thank you. Bob Hamilton. What do you think is the most important issue facing our state and nation that Congress must deal with now?
I think the rise of socialism scares me to death, and that's why I've entered this race, is because we've got to keep this Senate seat ready. The other issue that is extremely important right now, especially after this pandemic and shutting down our economy, is we've got to get this economy going. We got to get people back to work. We need to open up. We need to get our schools open back up. Let's get our kids back into school. Those are two issues, I think that we need to deal with China. You did say pick one though, so I'm going to stick with, I'm a businessman, I'm an outsider. I know the fundamentals of running a business, and I've created hundreds of jobs. So I think I am the perfect person with the tools that can stand with President Trump, that is a true conservative, that can win in the fall, that can get this economy going.
Thank you. Brian Matlock.
Yeah, so I think by far the biggest issue facing us right this moment is the economy. We are currently at risk of opening up to a Great Depression. And I'm an economist, and at the individual level, the economy makes sense. You work, you get money, you spend it, right? It gets real weird at the big level. Because when I spend, that's someone else's income, right? So partly, how much money there is in the economy is how much money there literally is, but then how fast people are spending it. Suddenly we shut down the economy, and that's a lot fewer people who are getting incomes. Now, my argument, unemployment is always a policy choice. Like, the government is the monopoly producer of money. They can see what's happening, and it is absurd to think if we have real goods and resources, we need infrastructure fixed, we need things for food produced and things like that, and we have unemployed people, but we're like, oh, we can't afford it. We can always afford it, like if we have the real resources to put them together. Because what I worry when I hear all the other candidates in this race is austerity, like we have to do all these things that are going to cause unemployment, and then we're going to blame immigrants or something for taking our jobs, when really we could address that from the start. And
Time's up, sir. Thank you. David Lindstrom.
I love this question. Love it. Let me tell you why I love the question. I mentioned it in my opening statement. Deficit spending. We're spending far too much in this country. We have $26, $27 trillion. We have people in Washington who are afraid to make a decision. I'm running for Senate because I don't need to run for Senate. I'm running because I want to serve. I don't want to self-serve. I'm not trying to climb a ladder. I'm not trying to get re-elected or elected. What I think we need to do, what our senators need to do, and what our elected congressmen need to do, is they need to play under the same way I played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Pay for performance. If we have a $1 billion deficit in Congress, in the Senate, in this country, then what we need to do is we need to dock every elected official in Washington $100 a year for every $1 billion. Now, last year it was $1 trillion. That means every single elected official would dock their pay $100,000. Now, you don't think that's going to get people's attention? I do.
Thank you, sir.
John Miller.
John Miller. What do you think is the most important issue facing our state and nation that Congress must deal with now?
As Mr. Hamilton alluded to, there's a number of issues, but the one that I would hit first and foremost, I think it's an issue that both parties can agree on. It's one of my legislative agenda issues that's out on my website, is national infrastructure. America's roads and bridges are in decay, and they've been that way for a number of years. There's a big fight on, do we fix it, do we not? If you think about it, Kansas, which has the third largest intra-highway system, state highway system, and interstates 35 and 70, a national infrastructure bill is a huge economic boom, not only to the country, but specifically to Kansas. So back to my Kansas first agenda, a national infrastructure would be one of my key first top spot items, because it's a huge, huge economic impact, not only for the USA, but for Kansas. Just stop and think about it. From the design work of architectural engineering firms for the bridges, to heavy equipment for the road builders, to gloves for the worker, it's a huge economic benefit to the state of Kansas.
Thank you. Chris Kobach. Thank you.
I'm going to agree with Dave on the importance of the issue of the debt. $26 trillion is unsustainable and it's immoral. Think about it. We're borrowing from China, and then we're asking our kids and our grandkids to pay for our spending. This has to end. And I have to say this too. I will be a very strong voice in the Senate against what the Democrats are saying, because Nancy Pelosi right now is demanding that we spend an additional $3 trillion to pay for what the states have been spending as a result of the coronavirus. That's crazy. In Kansas, we have at least watched our pennies more carefully than some of those blue states like California. Did you know California spent $125 million giving $500 checks to illegal aliens? That's not only illegal, that's stupid. And now they're expecting the rest of us, federal taxpayers, to cover 3/4 of the cost. I will say not only no, but heck no. We are not going to do that. We're not going to subsidize the spending of blue states. That is so irresponsible. Second issue is not as important, but it is perhaps just as urgent. And I never thought I'd be talking about this in a U.S. Senate race. Trans athletes competing in women's sports. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 sports have already seen the records shattered by biological males. Women's weightlifting, women's cycling, and women's track and field. If we do nothing, next year it'll be 6 sports, then it'll be 9 sports. There's a real easy solution here. Take away all Title IX funds from any college that allows biological males to compete on the women's team. That solves the problem, and it needs to be done quickly, and Congress should act now.
Thank you. We will now be moving into our closing statement portion of Kansas Senate.
Chris Kobach.
Chris Kobach, you get to go first. You will have 2 minutes to give your closing statement.
You know, it's often said you can tell a lot about a person by his friends. And in a campaign like this, I've been honored to have the support of Governors of America, Ann Coulter, Dr. James Dobson, and a lot of great people. But you know, you can also tell something about a person by his enemies. And I'm the only person, not only in Kansas, but I think in any Senate race in the country, who's been personally criticized by Chuck Schumer, AOC, Sheila Jackson-Lee, and Rachel Maddow. Now, why is that? It's because I pose a threat to the worldview of Chuck Schumer, AOC, Sheila Jackson-Lee, and Rachel Maddow. They know what I've done, and they're afraid of what I'm going to do. Well, guess what? They're right to criticize me, and they will continue to criticize me. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that not only is the far left criticizing me, but the Republican establishment is running those false, horrible ads suggesting that I'm a white nationalist. Those ads are 100% false, and if I were a white nationalist, I'd be doing a pretty bad job of it since my communications director is black and my campaign manager is Jewish, but never mind that. This is insane. Why are they going on such a rampage against me? Because they want a yes man. And they know that I'm a conservative who won't budge. Mitch McConnell can push and beg and shove and threaten all he wants. I'm not going to concede our Second Amendment rights like he tried to do at the end of last year. I'm not going to concede on the Constitution. I'm not going to allow an activist onto the court. And boy, have we made some mistakes on our Supreme Court justices in the past, haven't we? Republicans have. We need someone who stands firm. And so I don't care what Topeka Capital Journal, the Kansas City Star, or any paper in this state says about me, because I don't work for them. I work for you, and I will always remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Hamilton.
I'm a plumber, I'm a businessman, I'm a husband, and I'm a dad. And I'm a fighter. And I will fight for my kids' future, and for their kids' future, your kids' future, and their kids' future. And this country is in trouble right now, and we need to make sure that they can still have the American dream. I will also fight for pro-life and the right to bear arms and to protect our families. I will fight for border security. I would like to get rid of socialized medicine and have free market ideas on medicine. I don't need this job. I've got a great life and a great family. But if somebody doesn't go up to Washington, and if we keep sending professional politicians up there that are just worried about getting reelected, then I think this country's in trouble. We have enough politicians that are worried about Wall Street. We need a senator from Kansas, a conservative senator from Kansas, that will stand for Trump, that will worry about Main Street, on reviving our family farms, on getting our hardworking people the chance and the ability to actually achieve the American dream that I've been given the right to earn myself. So if you want a professional politician up in Washington, I'm obviously not your guy. But if you want to help President Trump drain the swamp, hire a plumber.
Thank you. Brian Matlock.
Hello. So, as I mentioned, I've spent my entire life doing service in the community, opening my home, working in nonprofits, and so it is easy to see where my heart is, where my values are, by how I live my life. I'm an economist, and will make sure I will address the issues that we have as a result of this pandemic, both lack of consumer spending is hurting businesses, trouble with businesses paying rents and other things, and trouble with state and local budgets suddenly needing to make huge cuts to education and infrastructure right when we need those things so much. Additionally, I'm a bit of a weirdo, I'll admit it. I'm running as a Republican socialist. What I mean by that is Republicans who distrust big business as much as big government to have their best interests at heart. Now, are there reasons to believe that big government is not going to do everything efficiently? Absolutely. Are there reasons to think that sometimes businesses are going to take every advantage of us? I know when my wife had cancer, we were getting all sorts of bill rejections and things like that. They testified in Congress that they randomly reject claims just to make money in hopes that people won't fight them. So we need solutions that put more power in the hands of average communities where we can cooperate and work together instead of only competition, which has sort of allowed the bigger corporations to sort of play us against each other, put out of business local businesses, and then say, if you don't get to $1 million tax abatement, they will. We have to address the increasing healthcare, housing, and education costs for 40 years while there's been stagnant wages, because those can't keep going in different directions forever.
Your time's up, sir.
Vote right now.
John Miller.
So we got there's a joke in there somewhere, and I'm going to work on that. What I want to say is, when I look ahead to the future and I say, why you want to be a senator? Why would you do that? Much like Mr. Hamilton says, it's really not about me and people of my generation per se. It's about my 3 children and their children to come. I believe the U.S. Senate will turn into a gatekeeper for the American dream. People say, why are you qualified to do that, John? What makes you think you can be a senator that represents Kansas? First of all, I'm not a politician. I have real mixed emotions about the possibility of being a U.S. senator. But I can assure you, I only know how to do one thing, and that's to persist and do the best I can with whatever my job is. So that's my motivation moving forward. The challenge that I see with our country will be to sustain the American dream. And when I go to Washington, D.C., I don't have an agenda. I don't have PAC money. I don't have a real affinity for any major party, so to speak, in terms of I'm a total party line 100%. I think there's opportunities. And I think my 26 years in business have given me the skills and ability to see where we can make changes that are to the benefit of all. And for the most part, first and foremost, every time, to the benefit of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance Burley.
I don't aspire to be a politician. I aspire to be a statesman, as our founding fathers were. They were all first-time politicians. I mean, they've been involved in some stuff, but to take office in the United States of America, they were all new. And one of our founding fathers, with some other great men, wrote a great document. And I don't know if you know this, if you've seen it in a while, but this is the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. It weighs less than an ounce. And now we have a U.S. code that weighs 15 to 20 pounds. And that doesn't count the local ordinances, mask mandates, and all the other things that have been suppressed upon us. Tyranny comes in all forms, it's great and small, and we have to stand up to that. I'd like to read the last paragraph or two of the Declaration of Independence, if I can see. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these states, solemnly publish and declare that these United States are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. These were great men. These were intelligent men. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that everyone? Mr. Lindstrom.
I started by saying, by mentioning the fact that the country is under attack. I want to finish by saying that I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough of career politicians. I've had enough of people talking about defunding the police. Folks, what I believe is we need a senator who's going to be tough, who's going to make things happen, who's going to talk about things that need to be talked about. I would propose as your U.S. Senator that anyone who riots, loots, brandishes a firearm in a riot to try to intimidate the police would be having to serve a 10-year sentence for doing so. I want you to know, this is not something that I had written in my last chapter of my life. My wife and I just celebrated our 41st wedding anniversary. This country is too important to me. The state is too important to me. It's important that we have someone go to Washington that represents you the way you ought to be represented. That's authentic, that's tough, that has the right temperament, that has community service and public commitment. And I offer you someone who doesn't represent special interests, who will represent you. I want to end on a lighter note, though. I have 30 seconds, and I've learned that you need to have a senator who also has humility and a sense of humor. I've been campaigning for a long time, and as a former professional athlete, thought I had made it. Former business owner, thought I had made it. Now running for Senate, thought I had made it. I was in a retirement home, and I'm saying hello to folks, walking around, meeting everyone, and I see a woman in a wheelchair in the corner, and I go over and I kneel down in front of her, and I'm introducing myself to her. I look her in the eye and I say, "Do you know who I am?" And she looked at me right in the eye, tilted her head and said, "No, but if you check at the front desk, I'm sure they'll tell you." Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. So this concludes the U.S. Senate portion of our forum tonight. I want to thank each of you for your willingness to serve our country, and I promise you all it is hotter up here than it is down there. So let's give these gentlemen one more round of applause. Thank you. Next up is our candidates for the United States House of Representatives in District 2. You can make your way to the stage. This is going to be a little bit shorter portion for us. We have two candidates, Jake LaTurner and Dennis Taylor. First portion will be your 1-minute opening statements.
Jake LaTurner.
Jake LaTurner.
Good evening. It is so good to be back home in southeast Kansas. As many of you know, I grew up in Galena. My wife grew up in Chanute. We're both Pitt State grads. And I had the honor of representing Fort Scott in the state Senate. And I'm running for Congress now for a couple of reasons. I'm running because I think we need someone that can represent our values, someone that we can trust to do what they say they're going to do, and someone that can keep this seat in Republican hands come November. The mayor of Topeka, her name is Michelle De La Isla, she is running as the Democrat nominee. She was just endorsed by Elizabeth Warren. She's had fundraisers with Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. She out-fundraised the Republicans combined this last quarter. And it is critical that we have the very best candidate possible to make sure we do not send someone from this district to go vote for Nancy Pelosi in Washington, D.C. I think I'm that candidate, and I look forward to your questions in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening and welcome, and thank you all for coming this evening. My name is Dennis Taylor. I am a business owner in Topeka. I also teach at Washburn University in the School of Business. I have been a Shawnee County Commissioner representing both urban and rural parts of Shawnee County and was largely responsible for the repeal of the intangibles tax in Shawnee County. I was Kansas Secretary of Labor and have directed jobs programs in the past. I was also a senior advisor to the U.S. State Department for democracy and national security programs in Eastern Europe for 10 years. I have the experience to represent you well in Congress on those issues. One of the reasons that I'm running for this seat is because I believe we're in a crisis. We're at war, folks, and we're at war that needs to stop so that we can actually recover our economy. Our business is down about a third in revenues over the past several months, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. So that's one of my concerns.
Your 1 minute is up, sir.
Thank you.
Now there's two of you. You think we can agree for one of you to go first with the first question and the next to go first with the second question? Okay, we'll give Mark a break. So, Mr. Latourneau? Rural Kansas has experienced long-term population decline as well as an aging population. What will you do to ensure rural Kansas receives the same priorities in Congress as the more urban areas of the state?
Well, I'll tell you what helps. It helps to have someone represent you that has lived in rural Kansas and understands rural Kansas. We need to determine what our priorities are, and then we need to fund those priorities. And then we need to get taxes down and get government off the necks of small businesses and farmers throughout the state. When I was in the state legislature, I introduced and we got passed property tax reform for the first time in a long time that gave people the right to vote on property tax increases in the state. I think that's critical. We also have, as you know well, infrastructure needs. I'm proud to say that I've been endorsed by the Kansas Farm Bureau, the only candidate in this race. As I traveled the state, I heard consistently about the need for broadband expansion. Now, a lot of folks in the city, when you bring that up, they'll think, well, what do they want? Do they want faster Netflix speeds? No, not at all. We need folks in rural America to have access to global markets. We need them to have the ability to connect their equipment to satellites in space. I've heard horror stories of folks running equipment worth tens of thousands of dollars off of a mobile hotspot. And we have infrastructure needs. Highway 69 expansion to 4-lane is one of those biggest projects. 22 projects in the state were canceled. Only one got put back on. It was when I was your senator, $25 million project. We came in under budget, but we got the thing done. We need to make sure we get Highway 69 built, and I will be laser focused when I'm in the state, when I'm in Congress, to make sure that that happens.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I spent the early years of my life growing up on my grandparents' farm, so I understand farming from their perspective and from my parents who grew up on those farms. But folks, rural development is not just about farming, and it's not about just lowering tax rates. If it had been, all those people who contributed to that population decline and the aging issues that the question asked about would still be in rural areas in the state. Why did they leave? They left because of lack of opportunity. We have to actually restore opportunity. We have to do that in about 5 or 6 ways. First is diversification. Diversification means bringing other than agriculture to rural Kansas. It means quality of life. It means we have to attract those professionals who otherwise people are going to go to the cities for here in this community. Doctors, lawyers, hospital folks, nurses, lawyers have to be here. If they're not, people are going to migrate to the cities. We have to have incentives to bring them here. We also have to have markets for the goods, for not only manufacturing goods, but agricultural goods. We need to get import taxes down. It's no good having unwinnable trade wars. It's not expanding our markets and our competition. We do need to have broadband, I agree on that. But I would join the Rural Development Rural Development Caucus in the House. And that's where working across the aisle for people who represent rural areas around America is where we really need to get the job done in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to just stay there, I'll ask you the next question. What do you think is the most important issue facing our state and nation that Congress must deal with now?
Well, absolutely. It's, as I said a little bit ago, we are a nation at war right now. And the only way we're going to get the economy back is if we win that war. March 20th was just 4 short months ago. This is July 20th. March 20th, we had 200 deaths in this country. Today we have 141,200. It's going to 150 by primary day, 200,000 by general election day if the trend continues. That's unsustainable. It's unsustainable up to now, and it's unsustainable going forward. It's not going to restore confidence. It's not going to bring back jobs. If we don't solve that problem, we're not going to ultimately have the other issues we're talking about even to deal with. So what's my plan? My plan is not to do what, if you watch the news today, you know, Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy were meeting with the president, and they're talking about another $1,200 paycheck stimulus program. Not to put people to work, but just to simply give them that money in order to keep the economy moving, as was suggested earlier. People who have no jobs can't spend, companies that don't have revenue can't hire, may lay off. So how are we going to solve that? We need to be taking the 20 million people who are unemployed in this country, and we need to be putting them to work, to test, to trace, to get the virus isolated. We can hope for a vaccine. I hope for that too, but hope is not a strategy. And unless we have a alternate plan B, we're going to be dealing with this for the next 2 years whoever's elected to Congress. So I would focus on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what the most important issue is, and I think we all have some sense of this. We are losing our sense of self in this country. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that our founders, just like you believe, got it right. They understand that our rights come from God and not from the government. We believe in the separation of powers. We believe in capitalism and know that it has brought more people out of poverty than any economic system in the history of the world. And it's time that we stand up and defend what we know to be true. It is critical in this country. We have people walking the halls of Congress talking about socialism, talking about infanticide. It is time now more than ever to have people stand up and lead. You all know elected officials that you supported in the past. Some have been bad, some have been okay. But I bet you the ones that were okay, most of them were sitting in the back row. Maybe their voting records were okay. The time for that being acceptable is over. We need people that are willing to stand up and lead on these issues, take the arrows, and take this country back.
Thank you. The first one to give your 2-minute closing statement. Jake Latourneau.
Thank you so much. I'll continue on what I was talking about. I think the best predictor of how someone is going to behave in the future is how they've behaved in the past. During my time in the state legislature, I received an A+ from the NRA because I carried constitutional carry. You all don't have to go ask permission from your government anymore if you want to conceal carry a handgun. That was the bill I carried, and we got it passed. I carried Simon's Law that puts parents in charge of their children's health care decisions and won the Pro-Life Hero Award for it for Kansas for Life. I'm the only candidate in this race endorsed by Kansas for Life, by the way. I introduced welfare reform that was very balanced. We said, hey, we'll give you a helping hand when you need it, but in turn, we're going to have work requirements. We're going to have job training. We're going to have drug testing. We got it done. I introduced property tax reform that let people be in charge of property tax rates. That's the kind of leadership that I'm talking about. And I have a plan for the future. I put out the contract with Kansas, and I called it a contract intentionally because I've sat in seats just like you are right now and heard politicians sound really good in election years and then get elected and behave differently. Have any of you experienced this before? I put out the contract with Kansas so you can hold me accountable. In the contract, I say that I support term limits, and I signed the term limit pledge because we can't keep sending the same people to Washington and expect a different result. I think we need to balance this budget. It's in the contract. We need to reform our immigration system and build the wall. We need to make sure that we have people that will stand up and defend life and the Second Amendment. And I vow to live and raise my family here in Kansas, because I don't think you can represent people well if you don't know who they are. And that brings me to my last point. This is a unique opportunity for Southeast Kansas to have an elected congressman that is from the area, that understands our unique needs, to make sure that our voices are finally heard. Because I think most of you know out there, we've been overlooked for a long time. I appreciate you so much. God bless each and every one of you. I need your vote on August 4th.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I make only 2 pledges to you tonight when I serve as your congressman. One is to serve no more than 2 terms. I'm not just talking about voting for a term limits bill, because we all know that isn't going to pass. The people who are in charge I've been there 30 years, that's not going to happen. So unless you're willing to say that you are actually only going to serve 2 terms, term limit kind of pledge is meaningless. I pledge to serve no more than 2 terms. Second, I pledge to give back 50% of my paycheck to help those in the 2nd District suffering from COVID-19 as a part of a relief package to assist those people who are much less fortunate than I am. Those are my 2 pledges. The third thing that I would mention in closing is, it was referenced earlier in terms of needing to win this seat and keep this seat in November. I'm the only candidate in this race who has not spoken ill of other Republicans in this election, and I won't do so now. What I will do instead is guarantee that if I'm the nominee of this party, we are going to be able to win in November, because we're going to be able to bring people together. And that's why I'm running, and that's what I will do as your congressman. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Steve Watkins was unable to be here with us this evening, but he has sent Will Cowan in his place to give a 3-minute statement.
Thanks so much for having me tonight, and thanks to the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. Like she said, my name is Will Cowan. I work for the Congressman in Pittsburgh. Sadly, he was unable to be here tonight because Nancy Pelosi called everyone back for votes the next 2 weeks. So he wishes he could be here, but he sadly can't. The first thing I want to address, I don't have a lot of time, but the first thing I want to address is these voter fraud charges. I know you've been seeing a lot of negativity in the news, and so might as well just get it right off the bat and answer the charges. First off, he put his P.O. box instead of his physical address, which a lot of people have done. When we talked to the Secretary of State when he was fixing his form, he said over 200 people just in the Topeka area did the same thing, but they're not getting charged with felony voter fraud. Secondly, there have been people that have a lot more expertise in this area of work, and they have said the charges are overblown and should have never even gone to the DA, but should have gone to an independent election board. But here we are. Thirdly, the timing. Dropped 1 day before early voting, right before our first televised debate, and one of our opponents had the most well-prepared statement was that first question that was randomly drawn. I'm just saying, it's suspicious to me. We have made a motion to get the DA disqualified for the suspicious timing and just a lot of other things, and y'all can read that online. Secondly, with all that being said, the congressman has still had a lot of support coming his way. Leader Kevin McCarthy has said, and I quote, about 2 days ago, he said, I supported and donated to his campaign earlier in the season, and he's not planning on changing his support anytime soon. So that's awesome that we still have the support of the minority leader in Congress. Secondly, he is endorsed by the National Rifle Association and got an A this year. He's also the only candidate endorsed by National Right to Life in this campaign. And he's also endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is a small business organization, which is huge for getting us back on track after COVID. He was named earlier this year to co-chairman of Trump's re-election committee, and that's still the case even after all this negativity, and he holds that title proudly. Last but not least, Steve Watkins has a special place in his heart for rural Kansas and Fort Scott especially. His very first bill that was signed into a law was about Lynette Blair, right down the road. It took an act of Congress to get the historical marker just moved to the other side of that street to that be included in the historic fort, and he got that passed. He's also been working a lot with the local members of Fort Scott and Via Christi to secure grants so the hospital in Fort Scott can continue to run. He has done everything he can to help rural communities, working on rural broadband, incentives for doctors to practice in rural areas, and even tax credits for small businesses and banks to give loans out to those businesses. Thank you so much. I hate that he couldn't be here, but he has a day job, unlike one of our opponents who kind of forgot that he's the state treasurer. Have a good day, and we hope we can get your support August 4th.
Thank you. We can't make a rebuttal in this format. I'm sorry, you can address it after this part of the forum. But thank you, gentlemen, for your willingness to come up.
Hold on, he can't do a tip job at the end there and me not respond to it. Real quickly.
That's not part of the forum, I'm sorry. I'm sure you have other ways of addressing it. Through social media, if you want to share your information at the back, there are ways people can get a hold of you, I know. But we do have a limited amount of time. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our state races, and we need our candidate, our lone candidate that's here this evening for the Kansas Senate in District 12 to come to the stage, please. Good, how are you? Karen Tyson. You have the opportunity to make a 1-minute opening statement.
Well, good evening. It's great to see everybody here. One of my favorite places to be. We won't mention anybody else in the race tonight. So thank you guys for being here. I'm very proud of the 12th District, northern part of Bourbon, Lynn, Southern Miami, Franklin, Allen, Anderson. You guys know my platform: limited government, individual freedom, traditional values, and economic development. We've got to stand and stand strong because we are losing our freedoms from within. And so I ask you to join me in this campaign and this election and vote Tyson. Stand for somebody that will stand for your values, Kansas values, and America.
We have 3 questions that you have the opportunity to answer, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer each one. The first question: communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be, if re-elected, to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
That's a great question and an easy answer. Get government out of the way. Businesses know what to do. They just need the rules, the regulation, the statutes to be supportive of our small businesses and our families in Kansas. We have so much rules and regulations. A prime example with this pandemic, our governor chose to, right before Easter, shut down churches. She gets taken to court, gets sued, and finds out that she can't do that. Then the mask mandate comes out. And if statute would have been read, every county gets to decide for them what's best for that county and that area. And that's what we need: local control, local governments, and I will continue to fight for transparency and freedom for us.
Thank you. What is your number 1 priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
Kansas public education is so critical. I'm proud to be Kansas educated. I'm a 5th generation Kansan, and I was educated in private partially for 1st and 2nd grade, if that counts, and the rest for public schools. K-State, KU, I have 2 bachelors from K-State, a master's from KU in engineering management. It is so critical, our education. And one of my priorities that I have been working on, and it's getting more attention now, is technology in our schools. People say, well, we have that. No, we have technology that we use in our schools. We need access to coding, networking, hardware, software classes. We need to make sure our high school students could graduate from 12th grade and they could have well-paying jobs and telecommute and live within our communities if we would get that access to the schools. And that is one of the issues that I've been working on and will continue to work on. I've been in IT for, well, over 30 years now. I hate to say it, a little embarrassing, but I've been married for over 30 years also. But the technology is actually less available for coding and networking than it was when I was in high school. And it's nothing against our schools, it's just I think we lost sight as a state as to what's important and what kind of jobs that we can have in our communities.
And your final question. Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
I absolutely do. And part of that is to get government out of the way. If you look, government tax code picks winners and losers. I've been fighting this for years, and I think it's starting to get some traction now. If you look at the tax code, it literally gives a sales tax abatement to a Rotary Club in Wichita. No other Rotary Club in the state, but that Rotary Club gets a sales tax abatement. So we seriously need to look at defining who gets the tax abatements and who doesn't. You've heard the term broaden the base. Well, I'm not about broadening the base. I'm about fair taxes for everyone. And the property tax, I know that's an issue. I worked on it diligently across the state last year, listening to all types of stakeholders. We formed a team. I treated it like a project management, like an IT project. We started out with pie in the sky, from everything from electing appraisers to no property taxes at all. And we whittled it down to a reality of transparency for property taxes. Why did my property taxes increase? Was it the valuation? Was it because Topeka raised it? Well, who in Topeka, legislators or PBD? We need to know, or was it local government? All that bill that we passed the legislator, super majority in the House and the Senate, we had veto-proof majority.
Time's up.
Thank you.
And you now have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement.
I'll finish that last statement too. We had veto-proof majority and our governor vetoed it knowing that the clock had ran out on the legislature. So the bill was killed because taxpayer-funded lobbyists asked the governor to veto it, and she did. I think everybody could support transparency. They may not like it, but I'll tell you my votes are transparent. You guys can look in the journal. You can look online. All my votes that are recorded are public. You can listen to the committee meetings. The votes are public. You can watch and listen to us online for when we're on the floor debating. I think transparency is critical. I ask for your support. You guys know I say what I'm going to do, and I do what I'm going to say. And I fight hard for you. I will continue that fight in Topeka and constituent services. You know you can reach out to me anytime. Even on the opposite side of the aisle, I work with both sides. I don't care where a good idea comes from. If it's a good idea, we're going to jump on it. I'm going to fight for it, and we're going to try to get it done. And I ask that you stand with me because we are losing our freedoms, literally, losing our freedoms from within. Mike Huckabee made a statement this weekend. He said, you know, you can vote for the nice guy or you can vote for the person that gets it done. Well, you guys got a nice choice. You can vote for the nice candidate, and that is the person that gets it done. So I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to our state and continued willingness to do that. Next, we have our candidates for Kansas Senate in District 13. You'll first have an opportunity to make a 1-minute opening statement, and our first person to do that is Richard Hilbrand.
One of the things that always amazes me under these forums and stuff, there's always just something for everybody's up and talks, and it's usually the mic. So just word of it, everybody coming up later, it's always the mic. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, for showing up, showing interest in this race. It's very important that you get out and you get to listen to what the candidates actually, what they actually care about, what they're going to tell you, and how they're actually going to vote. One thing I am always fortunate to let you know is everything I say I'm willing to do, I've always done when I went to Topeka. My voting record, I've always been conservative, I've always fought for your values. One of the things, whenever I decided to run, I told everybody, I was asked, why do you want to run? I said, well, I love my country, I love God, I love my freedom. And every day I watch the news, we're losing a little bit each day. And today, that was 2017. Today, we lost so much since that day. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Engel.
Good evening. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this event. It's a great opportunity for people to come out and to talk to the candidates and to express your views, and we can get together and talk afterwards. I live in Casper, Kansas. I'm a retired attorney, and I decided to run for the Senate because I think we need in Southeast Kansas a really strong voice in Topeka. And the one thing that I will pledge to you is that I will always, in every vote, think about Southeast Kansas first. Is this a good bill that helps people in my district? Is it a bad bill, or is there some harm? And sometimes it's going to be a balancing act. But I will always be thinking about you first, and that's the only pledge I have.
Thank you. I'm going to adjust this microphone a little bit because people are having a hard time hearing. If you can make sure that you can speak into it as well as you can. I know our technology is not the most recent here. Who's our first person for our first question, Mr. McCoy?
Richard Hildebrand.
Richard Hildebrand. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. Communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be if elected to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
I'll continue what I have been doing. This last legislative session, I actually sponsored and introduced 2 bills that would actually sunset every rule and regulation that the state of Kansas currently has within 5 years. And what that bill would do then is each agency that unelected bureaucrats that are making these rules and regulations that are making it hard on Kansas businesses and Kansans, they have to show how that is going to affect and how it is going to help each business and each individual in Kansas. And I'll continue to keep doing what I've always done. Thank you.
I will repeat the question. Communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be if elected to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
Well, I believe that the first thing we've got to do is get an understanding of this virus and what we have to do to make our communities safe, to make our schools safe so they can safely reopen in the fall. There's going to have to be some government involvement. It's just the plain truth, because you're going to have to fund those schools to be reopened. And as you know, we have to get the schools back open so parents can go back to work, so we can resume our lives. And I think that we need to be listening more, not to politicians, but more to the medical doctors and the scientists that are going to be leading us out of this problem. I think there's going to have to be some economic development, grants to the local communities, and to maybe in some cases we will lose some of the small businesses, but to find other ways to encourage the local communities to bind together and help each other out. I know that in Pittsburgh, we have had a lot of
That's your time for that question. Oh, Nancy, if you want to stay there, you're first on the next question. What is your number one priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
funding, pure and simple. Our school system has been under attack for at least a decade. And we have not every chance that my opponent has had to support education and to support the teachers. He has not done that. I'm the only candidate that has the KNEA endorsement for this position. I believe that that if you want to talk about economic development, I've worked with a former governor in trying to energize an economy that was down. And one of the things that when we brought in companies that they looked at first was schools. They were going to bring their companies to a community where their children would be properly educated. We also have to understand that the funding of public education is part of our state constitution. We shouldn't have to go to the Supreme Court to force the legislators to do what the Constitution and what the duties are that they swore to do when they took the office.
Thank you. Mr. Holdridge, what is your number one priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
Well, it's always been, we need local control. Just recently, our governor issued another executive order delaying our schools to be closed until after Labor Day. She was the first governor, we were the first state that shut down every school in our state system back in March. Everybody can count the months. That's just way too long for that to be happening statewide. I promote, I've always been local support. It should be up to the local school board, it should be up to the local parents to decide when their kids, or when it's safe for their kids to go to school and when it's not. We still have counties that have under 10 cases of COVID-19 and they're still being shut down. That's unacceptable. And just a quick, just to address one of my opponent's comments, she needs to read the legislative voting. I have not opposed all school bills, school financing bills, but there comes a time when you have to understand what sustainability means, and we're getting ready to find out exactly how can we sustain that amount of spending in our state. Thank you.
Richard?
Mr. Holdridge, can you just stay there? Our last question for this group. Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
Yes, but I would address that question a lot different. It isn't about how you increase state revenue, it's how you increase revenue in your pocket, in Kansas pockets, because they're the ones that need to have the money to spend. They need to spend that money in Kansas, not in Missouri, not in Oklahoma, not in Nebraska, not in Colorado, where taxes are cheaper. We have to realize that we are in direct competition with our neighboring states. And until we realize that, until we start to tackle that, we are always going to lose money, revenue to our neighboring states. I was a co-sponsor of one of the bills that would have reevaluated and drawn transparency to our property taxes. And I will continue to fight for fiscally responsible tax policy and spending policy and try to keep Kansas from their spending addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
Well, I think that the state has got to come up with our priorities. We have to find out and figure what it is that is the most important to us and have fair taxes that will meet those needs. And, you know, we want a lot, but we need a balanced budget. And so there are always give and take. I don't have any specific ideas because those bills come through and the bills are often a mixture of of different views that don't sometimes mesh. So I can't give you any specifics, but I'll tell you one thing. When a bill comes across my desk, I will look to see, first of all, what's the impact going to be on property taxpayers in Fort Scott, Cherokee, and Crawford counties. One thing about taxes that I would like to see happen, I would like to see us do away with the sales tax on food. It is the most progressive tax in the country. It falls hardest on those people who are least able to pay for it. So that's my thoughts, and I'm going to stop now.
Thank you. Closing statements. Nancy, you get to go first. I'm glad I got you where you sat down. You have 2 minutes to give a closing statement.
Okay, first of all, folks, I'm not a politician. I'm a retired attorney. And what I believe and why I'm running is that I don't know about you, but I am sick to death of the bickering back and forth in Topeka. They can't get Medicaid expansion passed because there's too many petty personal politics involved. Medicaid expansion would have brought, as of today, over $41 billion, not million, but $1 billion to Kansas. Fort Scott, Bourbon County, would receive $2.8 million annually. Now that probably wouldn't have saved Mercy, but it sure wouldn't have hurt Mercy to have that kind of money. But getting back with the Governor Brown Act and Republican since then, it has not been able to get a vote in the Senate. Polls show that the people in Kansas favor it. They understand it and they favor it. Now, the one thing that I want to emphasize, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to want you to reach out to me when you have a problem or you have a thought or you're upset with me. I want you to reach out to me because I want to listen to you. I want to hear from you. And I want to take what you want as my number one advisor. The people are going to be my advisors, not some lobbyists, not some special interest group. The people are going to be my staff advisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you again. Thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you for listening to us get up and talk about what we want to do for you. And hopefully you all can reach out to us and explain to us whether you will have that chance on August 4th and November 3rd on which one you believe will best represent you. And God willing, I'll have your votes. But one of the things I do want to talk about is the state of Kansas is, because of this COVID-19, because businesses being shut down by the government, people being unemployed, we still have people, believe us or not, I still answer emails every single day, at least 2 or 3 a day, of Kansans that lost their jobs in March that still have not received their unemployment. From March to almost August, they have not received 1 penny of unemployment. That is unacceptable, and we need somebody, and I will continue to go back, and I'll continue to fight. It's not about being who's the nicest up there, who gets along with the best, most people, because unfortunately, sometimes you have to hold your ground. Conservatives have always been the ones that have given up their ground, and look where we're at today. We've got to quit giving up so much ground and start digging in and holding to our values and saying enough is enough. I've compromised enough. I'm sticking to my values, and that's what I will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you both of you for your willingness to serve the state of Kansas. We appreciate it very much. Next up will be candidate for Kansas House of Representatives in District 2. Hope you like the smell of bleach. Okay. You have the opportunity to give a 1-minute opening statement.
Hello, my name is Ken Collins. I'm a 2nd District Kansas State Representative, which, as far as Bourbon County is concerned, it's kind of over the western part, like Bronson, Uniontown area. The line between that and Representative Jacobs' district, which he represents the rest of Bourbon County. The line is somewhere between Uniontown and Redfield. I don't know. It's like it keeps moving around on me or something. But anyway, that was supposed to be a joke. But thanks for the courtesy laugh. But anyway, I have a lot of roots. I grew up and I now live in Mulberry, which is in Crawford County. But I spent a lot of time in Bourbon County. I'm a graduate of Fort Scott Community College, and as far as of all the educational experiences I had, I just got to say that I've got as good a quality education at FSCC as I've had anywhere else.
Time. That's your minute. Goes by fast. Okay, question number 1. Communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be, if elected, to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
Well, sales tax has been mentioned, and that is a very important one. Like food sales tax, last session last year, there was a bill that would have reduced food sales tax, and unfortunately, among other things, and unfortunately the governor vetoed it. And also other things, taxes like gasoline tax. I got to admit, I got to confess to this. I buy a good amount of my gasoline in Missouri because, hey, it's usually a lot less expensive over there because of the taxes. And I think if we could do something to lower gasoline tax, that would actually drive some, pardon the pun, but drive some more business back over to Kansas, and we could actually recoup some of that money because we'd be picking up more business because of that. And if you notice the small towns in Missouri compared to the small towns in Kansas, some of the ones in Missouri are holding their own and even thriving, and that's not happening so much in Kansas. And I'm also on the Rural Revitalization Committee, which we deal with a lot of things in that committee having to do with small rural Kansas, broadband, health care, just taxes, property taxes, just anything that has to do with rural Kansas we've discussed in there. We really haven't
And
had
your
that
time
much
is up on that question. Sorry. On the time, please. Question 2. What is your number 1 priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
Well, I think Senator Hildebrand mentioned something about local control, which I think would help. I go around and visit with educators and administrators around in the district that I represent, and they're all good people. They're all dedicated. They do what they can do, but it takes a lot of community involvement, and I think getting that more community involvement is keeping the local control. I believe that people will be more in a community, will have more of a stake and interest at their school if they have a little bit more control over it, instead of someone up in Topeka micromanaging how the schools are run.
And your last question, Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
Okay, like I mentioned back in that previous answer to the previous question, we need to try to keep sales tax down, property tax down, and gasoline tax down. And there's not a lot of property tax that goes to the state. A lot of it's local, and as Senator Tyson mentioned, some transparency in that would go a long way. When people know where their money's going and why, that would be a lot more beneficial to them. And that way, I think it would help with property tax in the long run.
And you now have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement.
Okay, again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and listening, and it's very important. And like I said, this coming up will be my second term if I am elected, and hopefully I am. And like I mentioned, the Rural Revitalization Committee, I serve on that. I'm on Health and Human Services, on the Election Committee, and I'm also on the Insurance Committee. And those are all very important committees to me, and I didn't choose any of them, but I enjoyed every one of them. And I'm very pro-life, very pro-Second Amendment, and I've always liked to listen to people when they have something good, something bad to say. And during this, since March, again, like Senator Holdridge mentioned, I've had this, who knows how many calls, I've lost count of how many calls I've had. People who said, hey, can't get to work, a lot of work, and they told me to get an appointment, but I just can't log on, just can't get into the system. And I've forwarded, I don't know how many requests or response to the Department of Labor about that. And I've heard back from some of them. Some of the people come back and say, well, finally I got here after this or that, or I got a call back. People are just so grateful when they finally get it. There are people even today that have not made it through that mess yet, have not gotten the money, the unemployment money that they were told they were entitled to.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a hand for taking this time to be here with us tonight. Thank you. Next up, we have our candidates for Kansas House of Representatives in District 4. I will note that they are not running against each other in the primary, but in the essence of time, we're going to let them both come up here at the same time and answer questions. Mr. Meyer, you will have the opportunity to give your opening statement first. 1 minute.
Good evening. Do you remember the song Sounds of Silence? When it comes to issues that impact our daily lives, what do we hear from our representatives in Topeka? Sounds of silence. Our hospital closes, we lose 300 jobs. Silence. Promoting real alternatives to abortion? How about expanding Medicaid to cover pre- and postnatal care for that pregnant woman and her little baby? Silence. Encouraging the public to listen to our health officials regarding the COVID-19 pandemic? No way. Instead, label them communists and other derogatory terms. But otherwise, silence. Speaking out for our schools as they struggle with how to safely reopen? Forget it. Sounds of silence.
And your 1 minute is up. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. My name is Trevor Jacobs. I am the current representative of the 4th District. I want to thank my wife and my family for being here. I thank you all for keeping us in prayer constantly. It is a battle in Topeka. There are two ideas that are coming, where we have socialism, Marxism, or capitalism, freedom, the American way or the global way. We are at a crossroads in our nation and in our state. And I believe that standing up for personal values, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, standing up for the value of life, in the womb, all the way to the nursing homes, to the healthcare facilities, is a critical thing. I believe in personal liberties. I believe that our properties, our hard work, our sweat belongs to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Meyer, for our first question. I'm starting to feel a little redundant here. Communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be, if elected, to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
Our businesses are just plain in trouble in Kansas, and they have been for years. We are not doing what we need to do to keep the businesses we have, much less attract new ones. As for instance, what are we doing to expand internet services throughout Kansas? Nothing. That is why businesses are leaving that require a broadband internet service in order to do their business. Furthermore, we need to encourage our businesses, for goodness sake, to work with our public officials in terms of safeguarding their clientele. We go into our restaurants here in town and none of the servers are wearing a mask. Of course, you don't have to wear a mask either. So meanwhile, our COVID-19 cases are going through the roof. Locally, we have something like 50 right now. How many more deaths do we have to have? Put your mask on, people. It's for the good of your businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs? Communities and businesses in Kansas have suffered greatly during the recent pandemic. What would your priority be, if re-elected, to ensure businesses are able to survive the current economic climate?
Well, the priority has always been the same. I voted no against higher taxes every time. I voted no against budgets that go beyond the means. See, we have to live in a budget. When you make and have a job that makes you $15 an hour, you're not able to spend $20 an hour. We have a hard enough time right now, and this mantra of spreading the wealth cannot work here in Kansas, cannot work here in Southeast Kansas, cannot work here in the 4th District. We need limited government. We need government out of the way. I'm not an anarchist by any means, but ladies and gentlemen, if we have to live in a means, if we have to live in a budget, if we have to provide for our families, if we have to live in this standard, that's what government needs to do. They cannot keep on spending, they cannot keep on taxing, and then wonder why they have no more revenue. We're already going to have a shortfall, as presented to me, of $653 million shortfall by June next year. And the mantra already is let's raise taxes. Let's raise taxes. I can't afford any more taxes. I run for this office, not so I can be a politician. I run for this office because I want to protect my property. I want to pass down my heritage to my family, to my grandchildren. And if we keep on spending and keep on spending and keep on taxing, we will have nothing here anymore. There's other states that are leaving.
And your time is up. If you could stay where you are, you're first on the next question. What is your number one priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
Priorities for education in the state of Kansas is to get money into the classrooms. We need local control. We don't just need government officials somewhere in faraway land in Topeka telling us where that money is going to go. We also need, not just for government schools, but we also need school choice. Sometimes government schools hate competition. Government hates competition. And if we can have competition with education, and children are able to adapt here in smaller classrooms rather than larger classrooms, why not give them that edge?
Thank you. Mr. Meyer? What is your number one priority when it comes to the support of Kansas public education?
I'm on the board of Fort Scott Community College, and so I'm having an awful lot these days to do with funding education. We're facing major shortfalls at the college, and the state is facing a potential shortfall of revenues of about $700 million. We will know much more in about a month when all the fiscal year and tax credits can be counted up, and we'll see where exactly we are. But what we absolutely have to do is protect the funding of our public school system. I have nothing against private schools, nothing whatsoever. a couple of my grandkids went to St. Mary's for several years. But I do not want public funds going into private schools. That is not the business of society to support private schools. We support our public schools. I support them 100%. I have a daughter who's a teacher, and my wife was a nurse teacher for many, many years, ran the nursing program at Fort Scott Community College. So we need to support our teachers. We need to listen to them about what we need in our classrooms. Talk to them. There's a lot of them in our community. Reach out to them and say, what do you need? What aren't we doing? They're the ones that they're the troops on the front line. Listen to our teachers. Listen to our school officials. Listen to the paraprofessionals. Listen to the janitors who clean up at the schools. See what they have to say about what our schools need. That's the way
And
to
your
go
time is
ahead.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, stay where you are. Bill, stay where you are. Last question. Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
The only way I see to ease tax burdens is to attract businesses into our state. And one thing we need to do that is broadband internet throughout our state, which we don't have. Many businesses will leave because they do not have it available, or they won't come because we cannot make it available. So we have to address that, just as in 1936, Congress passed the Rural Electrification Act, which brought electricity to rural areas. Today we have to do that with broadband internet. We have a beautiful industrial park. We have an economic development director. And how many businesses have we brought to Fort Scott in the last 5 years? Practically none. I don't think we have brought any to our industrial park at all. So we have to look at what business needs to come here. And the first thing they're going to need is broadband internet. And if we don't provide it, many of those that are here will leave.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs. Kansas sales and property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. Do you have ideas on ways to increase revenues to ease the tax burdens on Kansans?
Thank you. This last session, I did vote on House Bill 2618, which is the broadband program. And it's just not broadband, but it's also when you go to look to a place, you have to look at, can I earn a living there? Can I fund and support my family there? How are the taxes? How are the schools? It's all of that package. Again, for local control in schools, that's what it needs to be, local control. Local government should be in control. Again, this isn't about Topeka. This is about we the people. And when you and I are not able to continue to hang on to our own revenue, I promise you, government has every single great idea to confiscate your wealth. Because that's what government does. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it tells us, get out of the way. Your business isn't essential. Your job isn't essential. But it is. All of our jobs are essential because all of our bills are essential to fund for our families.
Thank you. Bill, you can give us your 2-minute closing statement first.
Let me address 4 issues I believe should be forefront as you decide who to support in November. I support Medicaid expansion, and here's why. It brings dollars to and does not take dollars from Kansas. It would bring $730 million a year into the Kansas economy. What would it cost Kansas taxpayers? About $480 per added enrollee per year. And those dollars would then roll back into the Kansas economy. Expanding Medicaid is key to preserving health services in Kansas. It would relieve the financial burden of caring for 150,000 uninsured Kansans. The pro-life, pro-choice issue, here is where I stand. To me, being pro-life includes assuring that prenatal and postnatal health care is available to the uninsured mother-to-be and her unborn child. Expanded Medicare would do just that. It is the one positive thing we could do to reduce the chances that the mother-to-be would choose abortion over life. Claiming to be pro-life is just empty words unless it's backed up by providing what is needed to sustain that life. Our public schools are at a crisis moment. Just open the schools is the mantra of some. Here's where I stand. I trust our public school officials and teachers as they work to create a safe learning environment under pandemic conditions. There are no easy answers or public or perfect solutions. If it becomes necessary, how can we teach remotely? That ties into my fourth critical issue, which I just touched upon a few minutes ago. When it comes to economic...
And your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Jacobs.
Well, again, thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for participating. This is a crucial thing. First of all, the expansion of Medicaid, it does fund taxpayer-funded abortions. We remember just recently the Kansas Supreme Court made a ruling that somewhere in the clause of the state constitution between liberty and the pursuit of happiness, they said that there's a right to murder a child in the womb. The expansion of Obamacare will do that. It's done it in other states that have adopted this policy. It also brings, like I said, taxpayer-funded abortions from conception, possibly even like New York and Virginia, all the way to 9 months old in the womb. So we have to be very leery on that if we're going to tout pro-life. Another thing is it has no work requirements, and it also has no legal status requirements. So we must be very wary about that too, because I promise you, as Americans, we work very, very hard and diligent for our own resources. And again, it's more government medicine. Are we able to get care right now with just the COVID? You imagine more government in our businesses who are already slashing care? There's individuals in the nursing homes that you can't even see because they're quarantined, they're pushed away. You have to look through to them in the window. And we want more government mandating what's going to happen. Let me read this to you real quick. One of my favorite presidents, the 40th president, he said this, Ronald Reagan, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We did not pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. And Thomas Jefferson said this, there is no justification for taking away individuals' freedom in the guise of public safety. And as many of you know, I like to preach. I love the Lord and I thank the Lord. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 says this, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this also he shall reap. I believe it's time.
And your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time tonight, for your willingness to service. Next up, Bourbon County Commission, District 2. We'll each give a 1-minute opening statement before we move into the question portion. I can't see that far, Mark. Jeff Fisher, you're up. 1 minute.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Fisher. The most notable thing about my education is this. I grew up on a dairy farm near Hammond, Kansas, and all of the important things that I need to do this job have been learned on that farm, and it's simply this. Spend less than you earn. It's a very fundamental concept, but as we heard tonight, many concerns about affecting tax rates and things like that. We get into trouble when we spend our kids' future.
Thank you. Sparky Schroeder. Is that okay for me to call you that?
Hi, I'm Sparky Schroeder. When my wife and I moved to Fort Scott 15 years ago, I went to work for Smith & Chambers as maintenance manager, with over 80 pieces of equipment and 150 employees. 6 years later, I was out of a job. with nowhere to go, and the company was gone. This is happening way too much in Bourbon County. We need new business. Do you know 50% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years? If we have a good mentoring program, the success rate goes to 70%. This is huge. I know that Economic Development Director and the Chamber of Commerce does some mentoring, but we need to make this, expand this into a full-blown program. We need to also include existing businesses. We do this with mostly volunteers, retired business people. Another idea is to have high school or college students mentor small businesses and people that want to start businesses out of their home.
And your time is up. Thank you. James Harris.
Thank you for having us here today. I am Jim Harris, Madison, County Committee. I believe it's time for Bourbon County citizens to be represented at a commission. I believe it's time to treat these citizens with respect. I have not seen that for a long time at a commission meeting. I intend to bring more transparency to our government, to less executive sessions. We want the public involved. We do represent the people. We forget that from time to time. We have to have responsible spending. We have to promote economic growth. We have to promote health care. And we have to lower our taxes. My family lived here. My folks lived here. And we've had high taxes long enough. I have a son that's in the school system here, but we're considered leaving Bourbon County because of taxes. We have to work together to lower our taxes. How many of you had lower taxes last few years? We keep seeing it in the newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you. For question 1. You get to stay there. Sorry. Our first question. What are your plans to address declining demographics and the increasing costs of government in Bourbon County?
Okay. Declining population. I have seen those numbers. The 20-year projection is frightening what our population could be. But we're going to have some decline in population because of young people getting education and changing careers, etc., even in bigger cities. But we also have to work together to make sure our communities are good for our citizens. We have to promote health care. I believe people will leave this area without health care, such as a hospital. But most important, I didn't get to finish one though. We have to lower our taxes. Taxes will drive people out of Bourbon County continually. As I started to say, we all see the newspaper. Commissioners held the mill levy. They didn't mention valuation went up. Did your taxes go down? No, they did not. But we have to address taxes, and that's going to help keep folks here.
Thank you. Sparky. What are your plans to address the declining demographics and increasing costs of government in Bourbon County?
Basically, we've got to increase our businesses in the county. And as far as the cost of government, we got to find better ways, and we've got to look at all our programs and things that we're doing. And there's a lot of things that I see that look like we could do a better job on some of our road repairs. I think we're going back and doing things too many times. We're spending too much money. We just got to be better stewards of what we're doing.
So I was surprised to learn about 4 years ago that the projections from Wichita State University suggested the population in Bourbon County was going to be 2,000 persons less than it is today. And you know, that was very concerning. 2,000 less taxpayers. You know, when we heard that the hospital was closing or potentially closing, we understood that that was a segment of our economy that represents 17.5% of our product. You know, what I've done is I have helped stabilize in seeking clients for the healthcare mall. I have, as a commission, active commission, we have inherited an ambulance service, which we certainly are running more efficiently than our neighbors to the north, who contract that out. You know, the idea of stabilizing that plant or delivery system, the healthcare delivery system, has been my top priority, and I'd like to see that complete.
Sparky, next question. What is one thing you would change immediately if you had the power to do so?
Probably is the transparency and accountability of our county government. We've had 119 executive sessions from January 7th until June 9th of this year. And out of those 119 executive sessions, they acted on 13. 45 of those were personnel, and 40 of those was for attorney-client privilege, but yet only 13 actions were taken. I think that we need to do a better job of letting the people know what we're doing and what is going on. I think they maybe didn't do anything wrong with all the executive sessions, but it gives the appearance that the government isn't working for the individual, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, is working for the citizens of Bourbon County.
Thank you. Jim? What is the one thing you would change immediately if you had the power to do so?
I would have a hospital department. I want to commend the commissioners working with the city on the ambulance service. Via Christie, CHC, we've made great strides since Mercy's left, but we've got a long way to go. We have to have a hospital here to sustain this community. I'm not satisfied with Dalton never go to hospital. Allen County, go to hospital. Anderson County, go to hospital. St. Luke signed agreement with them. We have to move forward with the hospital, and the ideal of health law out here is a great ideal, but we have to be very careful. We've got to make sure the business plan is there, the residents are there to pay the rent, because we cannot, as taxpayers, afford to subsidize the hospital very long. Thank you.
Thank you.
The one thing, well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not Highway 69 expansion to Gulfport, Texas. Although that is important. I think if this road gets drifted over through Allen County and down through Parsons, we will have lost an opportunity. You know, I don't think my top priority would be the infrastructure improvements either. I know we have a lot of bridges. I understand they need prioritization. We need to repair a number of these bridges, but that's not the first thing I would change if I had the power to do so. The first thing I would change is I'd find a treatment for coronavirus. And then the second thing that I would change is I would secure that third anchor tenant that's necessary to float this healthcare mall without adding additional tax burden to the taxpayers of our county.
And our final question. Jeff Fisher. What do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
Well, again, I can answer this as what it's not, although we find ourselves doing this from time to time. We find ourselves in HR disputes. We find our settling employment issues. You know, we're an employer of about 100 people, and things like that do come up. It's not that. You might think it's managing the sheriff's department. That's not really our responsibility, no. We do have some budget authority and responsibility over some of these areas, but that's not our responsibility. By statute, our responsibility as county commissioners is to be stewards of public health and safety, or health and safety. Forget about the public portion of that word. We're responsible for health and safety of the citizens in Bourbon County, Kansas.
Thank you.
Jim Harris.
Jim, what do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
Well, it's an easy question for me because my commitment if elected, I'm just going to read some of these to you, and I feel like that's the duty of the county commissioner, but much more. Represent the citizens of Bourbon County, more efficient and transparent government, and our local agreements with all schools and all cities working together, develop and implement regulations for wind farms and towers, where we can have a say in what happens in our county. Promote and support health care, it's our responsibility. Promote and support economic development. I intend to work with all department heads to have irresponsible spending controls. I work on the public works department. We have 41 bridges, has some problems. We've got to put the money back in our public works, but we can't raise taxes to do so. There's a broad responsibility commission. As Jeff said, we're not in charge of the sheriff department, we're not in charge of any elected officials, but we are in charge of the budgets, and we can work with them to control spending. And move forward. We've got to all work together to make Bourbon County a good place to live.
Thank you. Spark. What do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
Well, first and foremost is representing the people of Bourbon County and what their wishes are. We can't have our personal agendas overriding what needs to be done for the county. We have to do a good job and make sure that we listen to our people and do what they want us to do. Then secondary, if you have some things that you want to try to make better or change, you work at that. But I feel that's what's been happening here lately in the last few years. Our commissioners have not been listening to the people of Bourbon County and doing what they want done. Yes, we do need health care, and we do need to look at that. But also on health care, I want to make sure that if we go forward with this hospital plan, or this not the hospital, but the healthcare facility, that we don't get too deep into it where it's another black hole and our money just keeps going away and we can't control it.
Thank you. Now you'll each have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. And the first one, Jeff Fisher.
You know, I want to thank each of you who supported me 4 years ago. You know, 4 years ago, I thought this job was about roads and bridges. The last 2 years, it seemed to have expanded. You know, I know I've made some decisions in my role as a commissioner that I have some regrets for. I appreciate for those of you who talk to me about your viewpoint. I've learned so much more from you than maybe what you've learned from me, share my viewpoint. But I appreciate learning the different viewpoints, you know. I'm open to learning new ideas. I appreciate this community. I have 4 children. They're all in college, and well, except for the oldest one. But it's my hope that they will be able to afford to come back to a community and to be able to serve here like I have, like my father and mother have, like my grandparents have, and even my great-grandparents have served in this community producing food or providing services. Our biggest threat, we've heard it through the thread tonight, is property tax, is the effective tax rate. And we are competing, our effective tax rate is 5%. We're competing with our neighbors to the east at 2.5%. We need to learn the lesson that I learned back in 1985, and that's spend less than you earn, and we will be okay.
Thank you. Jim Harris.
Again, thank you for having us here tonight. I've been blessed to be born and raised here in Bourbon County. And I've lived here for 65 years. It's a place we proudly call home. A place where we wait for children and now our grandchildren. I believe Bourbon County is a great place to live, but I also think we're at a crossroads with this election. We cannot go back. We must move forward. We all must come together to do everything we can to lower our taxes, promote health care, make sure Bourbon County is a place that our grandchildren want to live. We can do this by working together and moving forward. I want to help make Bourbon County a better place to live. I appreciate you voting on this.
Thank you, Jimmy. Sparky.
The county is going to receive almost $4 million in the next 10 years. I'm afraid that in 10 years, the money will be gone, the taxes will not be lowered, and we have nothing to show but windmills. I think we need to have a lot of input on the money and where it's to be spent. The county commissioners are asking department heads to try to cut 15% out of their budget because of the shortfall from the virus. Are they going to have to cut services, payroll to achieve this goal? If I am commissioner, I would have started the request by saying that I, commissioner, I'm asking, I'm taking 15% pay cut to lead the charge on trying to get a hold of the deficit. You need to lead by example. I don't feel that the commissioner should be receiving retirement or health care. You're taking this job to do a service for your county, not a job. Accountability. I think we need to start at the top with commissioners. They need to be accountable all the way through the rest of the departments. Where I live, they redid my road a year ago. They did a really great job. They bladed up, graveled it. Right now there's potholes, and I haven't seen a blade in 6 months. We should not have to call commissioners. We should not have to call the public works director to fix this problem. This shouldn't happen, and it's happened all over. There's other things that we need to do that we can't go back and keep redoing jobs. We need to do them right the first time. Please help me put a spark in the county.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time tonight, and I'm sure that they would all appreciate your questions after or anytime you run across them in the community. That decision will be made in the primary. Next up, we have Bourbon County Commission District 3.
Can people hurt too?
Who are we missing tonight, Mark? I'm sorry, we only have 3 up here.
So I've got Kristen Beth, and I've got Lindsay and Nick, and I've got Philip Boyce.
Okay, so Josh, are you Josh? Hang on, we're just trying to make sure we've got.
Yes, Josh was happy.
Okay, so Philip Hoyt is not with us. Okay. So it's important to recognize that not everyone is running against each other in this primary. But we're going to have everybody. Oh, actually, you are. I'm sorry. We have it wrong on our sheet. So the first person who gets to give us, Joshua Jackson, you get to give us your 1-minute opening statement.
I'm Joshua Jackson, and I'm running for Bourbon County Commissioner District 3. And I know that your sheet says that I'm a Democrat, but I'm really a Republican, so just scratch that out and put Lora next to it. But mainly what I want to do is open the county back up. I want to put people's personal health choices back in their own hands and out of the government's hands. It's one thing for government to make recommendations. It's one thing for government to make guidelines, but I think that they're overstepping their bounds when they start making mandates and closing our businesses. And so that's the main thing that I'm concerned with is opening back up our county, putting the personal health choices back in your hands and letting you make your own choices. And also, the other thing that really concerns me is property tax and the maintenance program. I don't know why we're attacking people and
And your
penalizing
minute
people.
is up. Thank you.
Double duty here, so.
You're doing great.
Nick Rule.
Nick Rule.
My name's Nick Rule, and I am running for County Commissioner in District 3. I have been a County Commissioner for the last 3.5 years and have truly enjoyed serving you. I was born and raised here. I am married. I have 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren.
Thank you. And now we have Clifton Beth.
Good evening, my name is Clifton Beth. I thank the Chamber for hosting this. Lifelong resident of Bourbon County. My wife's a school teacher here. She's a lifelong resident of Bourbon County. My kids go to school here. My goal is that we have a county, a good county, that my kids can also call home someday in the future also. Thanks.
Thank you. For our first question,
Joshua Jackson.
Joshua Jackson, who is a Republican, not a Democrat. What are your plans to address declining demographics and the increasing cost of government in Bourbon County?
I think first we're going to start drawing people back in. I think one of the main reasons that people are moving away is because of if you improve your home or if you improve your business, the government will triple your taxes or double your taxes, and it incentivizes people to allow things to always go downhill and downhill and downhill and downhill. And so we need to suspend that for a while and maybe even do away with it altogether and see if we can't start improving the infrastructure and allowing people to expand their businesses and to grow their businesses and expand their homes and repair their homes and start bringing things back up to where our property values will increase and increase and increase. And then we can fix that to every time it sells, if the valuation goes up, we use that for your tax valuation. And so people will buy and sell houses and begin improving our community because they want to make profits, but they won't be penalized for it until after it sells. And then after it sells, then it depreciates year over year over year until it resells for either a higher price or the same price. And so that would be my first attempt to increase what's going on in Bourbon County economically. Thank you.
Thank you. Clifton. What are your plans to address the declining demographics and increasing costs of government in Bourbon County?
Number one, as far as declining demographics, if we don't stabilize healthcare or make sure we have a long-term emergency room, whether we have a hospital or not, that would be great. The fact of the matter is we have to have an emergency room to make sure it's here for the long term. If we don't, we can forget about everything else. We won't have anybody living in the county. As far as lowering taxes, I think was part of the second question, or we need to lower taxes for sure. Property taxes somehow, look at the budget, try to figure that out. But my biggest concern is healthcare. We have to keep that emergency room.
Thank you. Nick, what are your plans to address the declining demographics and increasing costs of government in Bourbon County?
Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to work with the city. The city and the county have to work together to bring businesses into Bourbon County. That will lower our property taxes. And the health care is a very important part of this. We do need an emergency room, and we need our doctors here. We also need some rooms to put patients in for observation.
Thank you.
Clifton Beth.
Clifton. Second question. What is the one thing you would change immediately if you had the power to do so?
I'd go back to healthcare, I guess. whether we have a healthcare mall or not, having a third tenant or 3.5 tenants, I believe, to make the numbers actually work. That would probably be my biggest concern. Again, it is my biggest concern. Also, roads. It'd be one of my other concerns. Of course, lowering property taxes, but roads in Bourbon County, at least in our district, I haven't seen a road grader in 6 months. I think it's unacceptable.
Thank you. Please, we appreciate the zeal. Let's remember to keep our applause respectful. Nick, what is the one thing you would change immediately if you had the power to do so?
Well, if I had the power to do so right now, it would be healthcare. I would not let the hospital close if I had a choice. But that is the number one thing that we need in Bourbon County to survive this. If we don't have healthcare, a hospital, emergency room, or doctors, there's not going to be nobody living.
Thank you. Josh, the one thing you would change immediately if you had the power to do so?
I think I would open all the businesses back up with no restrictions and just allow the citizens to do it. But not only the businesses, but also the courthouse to allow people to have access to everything that they need to do every day. I mean, it's hard to function if you can't get into the courthouse to do the things that you need to do. And it also allow the houses of worship to open with no restrictions and allow people to make their own choices about if you feel safe to go, go. If you don't feel safe to go, stay home. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You know, and put it in your own hands to be able to take the risks that you feel you're comfortable with, to be able to support your family, to be able to go out to eat and to have a good time, to be able to go to your house of worship and to praise God and to go just function in society. And so that would be my first order of business, is just get everything back open and put it back in the hands of the citizens and let you make your own decisions and your own life choices. And I don't think that's the place for government. I think it's a place for each individual person to make your own choice and to decide your own risk and your own benefits. Well, thank you.
Thank you. You're the first up for our last question. What do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
Well, I think the responsibility of government is to ensure that the rights of every citizen is upheld and that none are being infringed upon or tread upon by the government or by other individuals. And so that's our first and foremost function as government. And secondly, to ensure that the resources that we're given are being utilized in the best manner possible. Nobody likes to give taxes, but everybody likes roads. And so we need to make sure that, you know, everything that you're giving is being stewarded, is being taken care of, is going where it says it should go. And I would even go as far as to say it would be my responsibility to audit and to check out and make sure that those funds are going where they're supposed to be going and to the projects that they say they're going to. And it's also my responsibility to protect the citizens of Bourbon County and do the best things possible that I can to ensure their health and their safety and their happiness while they're in Bourbon County. It's a big job, but it's one that I'm willing to take on and to do my best at. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nick, what do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
My responsibility for being a county commissioner is to work for the people. I've tried. I've done the best that in the last 3.5 years, I've done the best that I thought possible that I was doing for the people of Bourbon
Thank you. And Clinton, what do you feel is your responsibility as a county commissioner?
To be accountable to the people, to try to put forward their wishes, and to be a steward of their money. It's easy to spend other people's money. It's really easy to spend other people's money. And that's, you have to be a steward of that and watch where the spending is. And I think we're coming up on a time, especially in the economy, the current economy, that is heading down. We have to watch our spending.
Oh, don't go anywhere. You now have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement.
After the last forum, it was brought to my attention by a constituent, a friend, that I probably don't have a future in public speaking. And he's right, by the way. I would rather be digging a ditch in 100-degree weather than up here. But I'm a doer. I'm going to listen to you, fix the problems. I don't need to stand up here and tell you a bunch of fluff. Tell me your problems, let's fix them. Thanks.
Thank you. Nick.
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And if I'm elected again, I will do the best that I can do again for the next 2 years as your county commissioner.
Thank you. And Judge Jackson.
I can't make a whole lot of promises about making big tax cuts and fixing all the budget problems. But I'll sit down and I'll do the best that I can. And we'll go through the budget line by line, look things over, and see what we can get rid of and what we can't, and just do the best that we can. But I also say that if you vote for me, there won't be a second wave of restrictions by my vote. Now, if the other 2 county commissioners outvote me, that's one thing, but I can guarantee you that there won't be a second round of closing businesses. There won't be a second round of masks. There won't be a second round of social distancing mandates. But you'll have the freedom to do what you want. But also, I'm going to establish tracking programs and to track all the citizens of our county. In my experience and my view of history, it's never turned out well when the government started tracking their people every day, every moment, just to make sure that they're okay, that they're safe. You know, that's not something that we've ever done in America, and not something that we should be doing. And so, if I'm a commissioner, that won't happen under my vote. And I will also say that unelected bureaucrats won't be making the decisions. We look at their council and we'll decide for ourselves what's best and what's not best. It's hard for a regular citizen to even have repercussion against people who are unelected and are making rules and are rounding people up and arresting them for suspicion of being sick. And so if I'm...
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your willingness to be here and for your service, and that position will be decided in the primary. Next up, we have our candidates for Bourbon County Clerk. Begin by making a 1-minute opening statement for each candidate. And our first up is Nick Graham.
After the last forum, I brought a cheat sheet.
My
name is Nick Graham. I'm a third generation Bourbon Countyan. I live in Uniontown with my wife and our 3 girls. For the last 20 years, I've helped local small businesses and education providers make their lives and their customers' lives easier through technology. I should say, unlike most IT guys, I don't like being hidden away in a corner office or a server room. I love going out, helping people where they're at, not asking them to come to me. I believe my skill set and experience give me a unique opportunity to transform how our county government both serves and communicates with you, the taxpayer, and I appreciate your vote on August 4th.
Thank you. Bobby Reed.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bob Reed. I've been a Bourbon County resident for 27 years. For the past 25 years, I've served this community and the citizens of Bourbon County. I was an officer for the Fort Scott Police Department, and I'm currently the major at the Sheriff's Department. My duties there include I manage the jail, hire, maintenance, inmate rights. I also do the budget. I'm not afraid of hard work or work at all. My dedication to the citizens of Bourbon County speaks for itself in many aspects, but one is that I have stayed with the county in my current position without a raise for 7 years. I would say that's pretty dedicated to Bourbon County. When elected, I will continue the same dedication to the citizens of Bourbon County.
Thank you. Kendall Mason.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I am Kendall Mason. I'm the current Bourbon County Clerk. I have over 15 years of experience working in the county clerk's office, 7.5 of those years as the county clerk. It takes years of experience to learn this job. I have a very strong work ethic, and I am capable of doing this job. I am a very conservative spender when it comes to budgeting and spending the taxpayers' money. I have a great staff in my office, and we all work hard together to get our jobs done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Graham.
Nick Graham, first question. What qualifies you for this position?
I beat on the same drum a lot, but I believe that my experience in the technology field gives me a unique advantage. County Clerk's Office has 14 core responsibilities, and all but 2 of them are handled via a software program called CIC. The office is entirely dependent on technology, and I think my background will help immensely. I also think the key to better communicating with our community is through technology, broadcasting the commission meetings in a way you can actually hear them, keeping the community up to date on news or upcoming topics of discussion they might be interested in through Facebook and the county website, making every public document easily accessible online. In my opinion, these fall on the shoulders of the clerk and can easily be implemented by someone with the right experience.
Thank you.
Kendall Mason.
Kendall Mason. What qualifies you for this position? And I might ask you to move the microphone down just a little bit so we can hear you.
I think what qualifies me is my past 15 years of working in the county clerk's office and the 7.5 of those years that I spent as the county clerk.
Thank you. Bob? What qualifies you for this position?
Well, there's no minimum state requirements for this position. Therefore, I believe that being in the community, knowing people, and also being the department head for the past 7 years and knowing how the community or the commission works, how budgets works, how the purse strings are issued, also qualifies me for this position to serve the citizens of Bourbon County. Mr. Graham has a lot of great ideas, and those will be implemented whether he or I get in. Nick's did a lot of good work, and so have I, and I believe between the 2 of us, both of our ideas can bring this county forward.
Thank you. Kendall. What do you consider the most important function of the office?
Well, I think there's two, we have a lot of functions in our office, but there's two huge ones. And one of them we're dealing with right now, and that's preparing for this election. We've spent months getting ready for this. And I will say the other one is setting the tax levy on all the taxable property in Bourbon County. That the county clerk does that. All of your property tax statements are levied in the county clerk's office.
Bobby Reed.
Bobby Reed, what do you consider as the most important function of the office?
Citizens of Bourbon County have got to come first. There are many functions within that office. However, you got to put the citizens first. You got to prioritize and put citizens first as far as being able to get them the information that they need. I'm sure at certain points of the year or certain times of election cycles, you have to prioritize for like the elections or tax appraisals or assisting the community with things that they need to come out of that office. So you got to be able to prioritize and multitask at the same time.
Thank you. Nick, what do you consider the most important function of the office?
The clerk's office has, as I said, 14 core responsibilities, and some of them are really critical. Running the elections every year, acting as the guardian of the budget with the treasurer. But I really think that something that really needs to be focused on and that they all live and die on is accessibility. I feel like the clerk's office should really act as the public face of the county where people go to find out anything they might want to know about the county government and making that information as easy as possible for them to access. One example of extra accessibility is something really cool that Linn County is doing. They're doing early voting, as all counties are, but they're taking it on the road. For instance, if you live in Pleasanton and want to vote early, on a certain day there'll be a Pleasanton City Hall and you can do just that. If you live in Lassine and want to vote early, they'll be there on a certain day and you can go vote early there. There's a lot of little low-hanging fruit like that that can make a big difference in serving our community and our taxpayers.
Thank you. Now you'll each have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. Kendall, you get to start.
I would like to thank everyone that has supported me in this position. I work very hard for the taxpayers of this county, and I hope to continue to have that opportunity. I would like to encourage everyone to get out and vote, no matter how you vote. And I will say, as far as early voting, we're starting tomorrow in office. We're ready. We have protective measures in place to help protect you and the poll workers. The state provided us grant money, and we're using that to purchase. We've got plexiglass barriers, we've got masks, we've got gloves, we've got hand sanitizers, we've got disinfectants, we've got individual combo styluses and pens. And I'm sure that there's other things that we're going to have to purchase along the way as we start voting and realize that we might need something else. But we're doing everything we can to try to keep all of you safe. So either come to my office, or actually go to the commission office starting tomorrow, or go out to the polls, or even request a ballot emailed to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick.
First of all, I want to thank Lindsay and Mark and Katie and the Chamber for hosting us. I also want to thank all the local candidates who have thrown their name in the hat, and there's a lot of them this year, especially Kendall and Bobby. I believe strongly that if a community has been good to you, you have an obligation to give back through service, and everybody here deserves credit for taking the initiative to do just that. Rural counties like ours are facing a new economic reality, and that is we're going to have to learn how to adapt and innovate and do more with less. I've worked for small businesses with very limited budgets, and I've worked for public education providers with even more limited budgets, and I know how to maximize the use of mineral resources and make our county government more responsive to you and more efficient in the use of your tax dollars and time. I've got several specific ways I can do just that and get them done relatively shortly, easily within my first year of office. If you go to my website, nickforclerk.com. I'm also on Facebook, which you can follow through nickforclerk.com. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate your vote on August 4th.
Thank you. Bobby?
Thank you all for taking the time to attend tonight's forum and educating yourself about the candidates. The county cannot afford another $374,000 mishap like what happened in 2016 and 2017. Our employees cannot afford emails or bulletins that were missed that affected their pay, like the Federal Standard Labor Act that passed this past September, that resulted in 3 personnel getting raises if I would not have taught them. My promise to you, I will carry a cell phone. I will be readily accessible to the commissioners if they need special meetings before or after hours. I will also attend training, which I'm not afraid to do. I do it now with my current job. I will attend any and all trainings resulting or required. And I will use the existing software to its fullest capabilities and learn other county software so that I won't have to rely on other department heads. Knowing the capabilities of the software may assist in saving money, the clerk's office is being able to send to the employees and elected officials through emails. I want every citizen in Bourbon County to know who their county clerk is instead of asking who the clerk is. Before you vote, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to speak to you. I would appreciate your vote anytime between tomorrow and August 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your willingness to be here and for your service to our community. Next up, we have our candidates for Bourbon County Treasurer. To begin with your 1-minute opening statements, Sean Pitlawani.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for attending. Been a resident of Bourbon County for 26 years. Had the opportunity to work for very successful businesses here in town and also be the owner of a lawn and landscape company since 2006. 8 months ago when I decided to go ahead and run for this position, it was my opportunity in which to give back to the community that has helped me and my family out for the last 26 years. Again, thank you for coming, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mike Mason.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Mason. I'm born and raised right here in Bourbon County. I began on the path of public service when I graduated from high school and I enlisted in the U.S. Navy. In the Navy, I served as a nuclear propulsion plant operator, stationed out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on fast attack submarines. After exiting the Navy, I started classes at Fort Scott Community College, took accounting classes, worked part-time for H&R Block, worked taxes, worked at a local bank, and then started working for a company named H&S Enterprises, where I worked for over 25 years. Currently, my wife and I operate a small family farm, and I manage my own small business. And I continue my public service by serving on the Board of Education at Uniontown USD 235, and I'm the Vice President of the Uniontown Rotating Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Love.
Hi, I'm Patty Love, and I'm the current Bourbon County Treasurer. I'm asking for your support for re-election to 4 more years. I grew up on a farm near Mound City, Kansas. Moved to Fort Scott to attend college. I lived in Fort Scott for over 40 years. I'm married to my husband, Bob. We have 2 children, Robbie and Maggie. I'm a member of Mary Queen of Angels Catholic Church. I'm the committee chairwoman for the Bourbon County Republican Committee and a past secretary for the committee. I started my employment at the courthouse 9 years ago when I was hired as a temporary employee in the Register of Deeds office. I was then hired permanently as a employee, a floater between the registered deeds office and the clerk's office. Then when an opening came up in the treasurer's office, I switched over to the treasurer's office. I was deputy treasurer for 5 years.
And your minute's up. Thank you. Mike Mason. You're first in our line of questioning. What qualifies you for this position?
I believe my qualifications are, in the Navy, I learned that attention to detail has been ingrained in me ever since. You use that through your entire life in all your working positions. At Fort Scott Community College, when I was attending there, I took accounting classes. I worked at H&R Block, preparing taxes. And then also I worked at a local bank, reconciling daily accounts every day, and all that had to be done exactly to the penny. My latest job was working at HMS Enterprises, a company that has 16 stores in 4 states. I was the accounts payable manager, responsible for entering and controlling all aspects of inventory and accounts payable, ensuring prompt payments, and making sure everything was done on time with a high degree of accuracy.
Thank you. Sean, what qualifies you for this position?
I think main qualifications, having over 20 plus years experience managing groups, departments, and also individuals. A lot of team building, working internally with other departments, building a foundation where it is a we mentality and not an us versus them. Been in charge of controlling assets of $25+ million monthly, being responsible for both quarterly, monthly, and also annual budgets, and making sure that the information is being provided to stay within those budgets on multiple facets. Being able to operate a small business basically on a cash business. If we cannot afford it, we do not spend it, but at the same time making sure we have enough rotation coming in to handle all regular expenses such as fuel, payroll, all the necessary things that we need.
Thank you. Patty, what qualifies you for this position?
Well, I guess I'll finish up what I'd started before. I've been in the treasurer's office for 8 years. I started out as a deputy for 5 years. Then when Rhonda Dunn stepped down, I was appointed as treasurer by the Republican committee. And then 2 years ago, I ran to finish out that term. I've done continuing education, kept up on the new things coming out with the Treasurers Association. I keep up to date and travel to the symposiums for the software company. And just everyday operations is what's made me qualified for this job. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mark wants you to stay there. You're first in the next one. What do you consider is the most important function of the office?
Wow, that's hard to say because there's so many important functions in the office. And I guess what I'm going to tell you about is what our duties are. The county treasurer is responsible for overseeing all county monies, including fees collected by the other county offices, as well as taxes collected each year from the taxpayers. The treasurer's office mails statements. The treasurer maintains an accounting of all county monies, including checkings accounts, savings, and idle money that are invested. The treasurer is responsible for distributing collected taxes money to various entities, including cities, school districts, townships, cemeteries, districts, as well as to the county. The treasurer also performs many duties for the Kansas Motor Vehicle Department, including title and registration for new vehicles, as well as renewals on license tags. This not only provides a service to our customers, but also provides additional revenue for the county government. I feel like the most important thing, though, probably of all of those, is just serving our county well, accurately, and with good customer service.
Thank you. Mike Mason. What do you consider the most important function of the office?
Other than saying serving the public and helping the public, that's the obvious number one. But other than that, I don't see where any one function is actually more important than any other. Because so many of them coincide with each other that if one is not done correctly, the problem goes on down through the line and downhill. I think the most important function or aspect of the treasurer's office would be accuracy. Make sure things are done accurately and correctly the first time, and that way there's not problems that follow on down the line.
Thank you. Sean, what do you consider the most important function of the office?
Some of this is going to be reiterating what others have already said, but let's take a step back just for a moment and take a look at the definition of a treasurer. An officer that's entrusted with receipt, care, and disbursement of funds. That is the main definition. They also have a secondary role, which is to go ahead and make sure that they're providing true and accurate information in a timely manner to the varying departments, the taxing entities, and also the public. The audits over the last 2 years prove that this has not been done timely or efficiently. The requirement of having an outside source to help with reporting and the agendas needs to go ahead and stop. We need to be in a situation to make sure that our taxpayers' money is being spent efficiently.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to our 2-minute closing statements.
Patty Love.
Patty Love.
Okay, and what I first want to address is what Sean just said. We have not had any, the only people that has done anything there is our auditor. We require an outside audit every year by the state statutes. We're not paying anybody extra to do anything. So, and I guess what I want to finish up with is what makes me the best person for this position. I'm a fiscally conservative Republican. That's been reflected in my reducing spending in my budget. We've reduced our office staff by 1 person since I've been in office. This was an agreement with me and the other girls in the office when we lost a person. We all took up extra duties to try to save money for the county. I have working knowledge of the other departments in the building. My job is treasurer is my only business. I have no other businesses, no outside things that take away from my time at the treasurer's office. I've taken continuing education, attended treasurer's meetings and seminars to increase my knowledge of the treasurer duties and operations. I have completed programs through Fort Hays State University, receiving the designation of Certified County Treasurer or Certified County Financial Officer. I am due to receive the 3rd designation. I was due in June. They canceled our meeting, so it will probably be sometime next year. I've already earned it, but don't have a designation. I'm a member of the Bylaws Committee of the Kansas State Treasurers Association, and I've completed Read Bourbon County. I'm familiar with the county software and attended company symposiums to stay up to date on our latest developments. I have an office of 4 talented employees, 3 that have been cross-trained to the duties of the office. 1 started 2 weeks ago.
And your time is up. Thank you. Mike Mason.
Most of my closing statements are already been gone through by the questions, but I'll go ahead and reiterate everything. My training as a nuclear propulsion plant operator in the Navy ingrained in me an attention to detail that stayed with me throughout my life. The need for this attention to detail became evident as soon as I started a nation on block preparing taxes, and in the bank reconciling daily activities as all entries needed to be accurate to the penny. At HMS Enterprises, a retail company operating 16 stores in 4 states, multiple $1 million, I was responsible for all aspects of inventory control, including semi-annual inventory audits and managing accounts payable, ensuring proper entry and prompt payment of all invoices. All of this was known with a very high degree of accuracy. As treasurer, I would strive to continue this and also to form a good working relationship with the commissioners, other department heads, and the county auditor to help ensure the accuracy of all accounts and entries. I would also seek recommendations from financial advisors to maximize the return of the county's finances. I believe that my attention to detail will allow me to efficiently and effectively perform the duties of treasurer, and is why I seek to be elected to this position, as I feel this is the next step in my path of public service. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Pitlani.
We as taxpayers deserve to know why certain departments have overspent. Was it due to lack of budgeting, over budgeting, overspending, or lack of information that's being provided to them? I understand the necessary outcome that the department goes ahead and the responsibilities of the office. As far as outside interests are concerned, we've been in the process of training a crew to go ahead and take over all day-to-day operations of any outside ventures that I have. It is not an issue to go ahead and dedicate the time, the responsibility that is needed for this office. It's time to go ahead and turn this from a likability to an accountability office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time tonight and for being here and your service to our community. And for everyone, you're hanging in there. We're getting to the short rows now. Lora Holdridge is running for our County Register of Deeds. She's running unopposed, and so she gets the opportunity to come up and make a 3-minute statement.
I'm short, and I'm going to make this short and sweet. I've been in the office for 16 years. I've been in the register for 10 years. I've been married to my husband for over 30 years. I have one son who's a veteran, so thank you to all the veterans. We handle the DD 214s in our office. Some people don't know that. I have a daughter-in-law, Jordan. They have given us 3 beautiful grandchildren who happen to live next door. Bonus. Callie, Blaken, and Kyson. And I have one of the best co-workers in the world, and her name is Maxine. One of the things that most people don't know is that we deal with everything that deals with real estate. And we choose to buy a piece of property, it comes to our office, it does go to the appraiser's office, then it goes to Kendall's office for the tax base. But a lot of times, you don't always know if it is as joint tenants, and that's one thing this virus has taught us. So if you're not for sure if your deed is joint tenants with registered survivorship, check with your attorney. It's never too early to start estate planning. Give us a call. We'll check for you. I absolutely love what I do. I appreciate working for the people of Bourbon County, and I will continue to do so as long as you vote for me and keep me in the office. And thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Our incumbent county attorney could not be here this evening, Jackie Sprouling. She wanted me to express her gratitude to all of you for your support, and she apologized for not being able to be here. She is running unopposed as well. And last but not least, our candidates for Bourbon County Sheriff. While they're coming up here, I want to reiterate, a lot of people, as many of you know, the election in November is important, but many of these races are going to be decided on August 4th, so do not forget to vote on August 4th in your respective primaries. We'll start again with our 1-minute opening statements. Derek Burke.
Good evening, my name is Derek Burke, and we've been living here since 2013. I'm happily married to Katrina Burke, which is a wonderful doctor here in town, at least I seem to think so, and we have 3 very nice children at times. I've been in law enforcement since 2014, and during that time I've encountered many different walks of life. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them different. But in the end, I've come to enjoy every one of those. That's how you get to learn about your community, is by getting out there and talking to them. And I think as an effective sheriff, you ought to be getting out and talking to your county so you can find out what's going on. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Craig Rice.
Hi, my name is Greg Rice. I'm running for sheriff of Bourbon County. I came to Fort Scott in 1999. I worked with Fort Scott Police Department for approximately 16 years. During that time, I got involved in a lot of community service, and that ended up being my passion. My wife of 35 years, I have 2 children and 3 grandchildren, and we enjoy living here in Fort Scott and Bourbon County. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Martin.
Good evening, everyone. In the event you do not know me, my name is Bill Martin, and I'm the current Bourbon County Sheriff. It has been my honor and privilege to serve you and each of the Bourbon County communities over the past 7 years. It is my most sincere hope that you are pleased with my service during this time. I have been able to bring the Sheriff's Office into the 21st century with upgrades to our technology systems and to our vehicle fleet. We have been in our new jail facility for almost 2 years, and I'm happy to say that the 0.04%, less than half of a cent sales tax, is paying the bills with money left over in the bank, even during COVID-19. I'm fortunate to be able to write grants for funding, which in 2021 we will allow full-time deputy presence in the Uniontown School District as a school resource officer. I have worked attentively and tirelessly over my last 7 years to be able to maintain budget figures and each year while we still provide the necessary service to all our communities we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Sager.
Hello, I'm Julie Sager. I've lived in Fort Scott for 30 plus years. I actually married into it, so I have a husband, we have businesses here in town. I have a daughter, 3 grandchildren. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. The first question?
Craig Rice.
Craig Rice. What qualifies you for this position?
I've been in law enforcement medical field for approximately 36 years. I started with Crawford County Sheriff's Department, EMS, and I was a correction officer, dispatcher. From there, I moved up to rescue and became a lieutenant with the EMS and the rescue squad. I actually taught through Butler County, the rescue, and in 1989, I went to work for the Pittsburgh Police Department, which at the time had a Pittsburgh Police ambulance, so I kind of moonlighted as an EMT there also. I was a dispatcher for Pittsburgh Police, one man on the totem pole, so we had to dispatch one time a day, or rather a week. We left Pittsburgh in 1999 and came up here to Fort Scott, and I worked for the Fort Scott Police Department for 16 years.
Thank you. Julie Sager. What qualifies you for this position?
Actually, I don't have any law enforcement experience whatsoever. I did take criminal justice classes last August, and with the pandemic and all that, and I had to finish like online. I haven't went back to see what else I could do. Just pretty much all I have.
Thank you.
Bill Martin.
Bill Martin. What qualifies you for this position?
I think what makes me qualified for this position is in my early years. Once I graduated from high school, I attended the military. I was in the U.S. Army, back to service for 3 years. I was in part of the Kansas National Guard military police for 7, and I took primary leadership development courses, the LPC, and also the basic non-commissioned officer course. I have worked with the Fort Scott Police Department where I started my career in 1989. I transferred to the Bourbon County Sheriff's Department in 1992, at that time as a deputy sheriff under Harold Dean Coleman. In 2003, I left and went to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, worked there for several years, and then I transferred back to the Pittsburgh, Kansas Police Department in Crawford County. After talking to my wife, I went back to Kansas City, and then the former Sheriff Ron Gray confronted me and asked if I'd come back and be his undersheriff, which I did, and I've been here ever since. My personal education would be probably with Missouri State University Graduate School, Pittsburgh State University Bachelor's degree, Fort Scott Community College Associate's degree, all in criminal justice programs. I've attended personal National Sheriff's Institute, Class 109 in Lora, Colorado, executive level education and training. I've attended the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department Regional Training Center. I have over 3,000 hours of in-service training in the criminal justice and administrative fields. Rural Executive Management Institute and Management Education and Training Program designed to prepare rural law enforcement.
And your time's up. First time I've ever stopped a sheriff. First time I've ever stopped a sheriff. Derek Burr.
What qualifies me for this position? Well, I do have knowledge of law enforcement. I have been doing this since 2014. But I don't like to consider the amount of years of experience to be what qualifies somebody to do something. Some of my opponents up here are going to have clearly said that they have multiple years, they have thousands of hours of training. Oftentimes this training and years of experience, they don't add up to anything if you don't use them. So what I like to consider is people who use their training and they use their years of experience to further the people around them and to help out the people who want to learn. I'm continually learning, and it's helping me grow a lot. Not only am I learning, but I'm also helping teach other people. And that to me is what qualifies somebody to be a sheriff, is somebody who wants to get up and lead and who wants to use their experience and their knowledge to be able to help other people further themselves down the road.
Thank you. Craig Rice, second question. What do you consider as the most important function of the office?
Teamwork. You can't run an office without having a teamwork, knowing who to go to when you have problems. The Sheriff's Department has two major offices. You have corrections and you have the Sheriff's Patrol. So you have to run both, and they both need to work together along with the Fort Scott Police Department. A lot of people depend on us, and we need to depend on them. And that's not really happening right now. And that's one of the reasons why I am.
Thank you. Derek Burke. What do you consider the most important function of the office?
To me, the most important function of the office is communication. You have to have an open line of communication with everybody. You have stakeholders out there that are going to be, whether it's the city commissioners, county commissioners, building committees. There are people putting money into these funds that you're using on a constant basis. You have to have an open line of communication with them. You have to let them know exactly what you intend to do before they're going to let you do it. And oftentimes what we've seen here is kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. There's been the option of having an SRO for numerous years, at least 7, and now we're finally getting there. What we're also noticing is election year, and we're finally getting to push ahead on it. The jail, that was a big deal. That only passed by, 16 votes? And it went well over budget from what I was expecting, from what everybody was expecting. And it's supposed to be a moneymaker. Well, we're still paying on the bond for it. So there's not a whole lot of communication going on out there, and we need to get that turned around. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Martin, what do you consider the most important function of the office?
I agree with everybody out there, the leadership and also the communication. I get my people, I empower my people to do their jobs. We have monthly meetings, we discuss the issues that are taking place within the office, both on the jail side and also on the sheriff's department side. We have those meetings so we can air out any differences and accomplish whatever goals we are set out to accomplish. With those, we are out there combating drug usage, search warrants for drugs, looking for drugs. In regards to comment in regards to the backup leadership, I'm the field training officer. I love to teach. That's one of my passions, teaching. At Fort Scott Community College, I was an adjunct instructor. I love to teach. I taught out there for 3 years. I'm on the criminal justice advisory board. In regards to the jail, that jail passed. That's the past. It passed. And it's time to move on. There were things taken out of the project, out of my control. Because when you went out, when you campaigned for that, it was 16 months later. 16 months later before the shovel actually hit the ground. In any construction project, that's 16 months later, the cost is going to go up. And everybody out there has some form of construction and would understand that process. So there are things that were taken out, but it did come under budget when we redid everything. Like I said, I empower my people. I expect them to do something and they know what to do.
Thank you. Julie Sager. Good late. What do you consider is the most important function of the office?
I agree with everybody up here on stage. You need teamwork, you need leadership, you need to be, later if someone's sick, you have to step up, be the better person. Just kind of keep things going at a regular pace. Just try and just make sure everybody is, has good communication and things that are just, working like they're supposed to work.
Thank you. One more question. Derek Burke. What are you going to do to address the crime rate in Bourbon County?
The crime rate seems to keep going up. If you don't believe that, you can go back to any of the commission meetings in the past, and it's always been the same statement. We're needing more money so that we can hire more people, so that we can patrol more. And it always just seems to be more and more and more. The way to cut back on the crime is to get out the county and look for it. And you have to do that by leading by example. Because if you're not going out there yourself and communicating with everybody in the county to find out where there are problems, then you're never going to know. I'm not going to know what's going on in Bronson if I stay in Fort Scott the whole time. I'm not going to know what's going on down in Darwin. You have to go out and you have to ask people. And by getting out there and asking people, you're going to gain the public's trust. That's another crucial part to this. The community and law enforcement have to trust each other and have to want to work together to where we can start building a better Bourbon County. We're not going to be able to cut down on crime if there's no communication. So in order to cut down on crime, we're going to have to get out there. You have to lead by example. You have to communicate with people, and you have to expect the people to be able to communicate with you.
Thank you. Grace. What are you going to do to address the crime rate in Bourbon County?
Well, like Mr. Bird said, you have to have more control. You have to get out there and communicate with the people and find out where the problem is. The biggest thing on crime is they always go where police aren't. So we need to make our presence known. We need to hit the roads and we need to patrol the small towns and make sure that they see us
And we need to work on neighborhood watches. We need to work on reserve programs, so we have more people out there and they're visible, they can see us. If you see that, I think crime rate would actually slow down quite a bit because they're going to move out because they don't want to see it. Thank you.
Julie Sager. What are you going to do to address the crime rate in Bourbon County?
I agree with the other two guys that were up here before me. The deputies need to be in the rural areas, patrolling, making sure that, things are, people aren't afraid of, oh, well, when is the next deputy going to come to our area? The only time that we call is if, we get a break-in or are they going to come or are they not going to come? Are they going to stay in the city? I mean, that's, they just need to be out in the county where deputies need to be. That's why we have a police department. Police department is in the city. That's their job. The deputies need to be out in the county, patrolling the rural areas. That's their job.
Thank you. Sheriff Martin. What are you going to do to address the crime rate in Bourbon County?
The crime rate has increased, the calls for services have also increased. And with the increase in calls for service, that puts a lot of burden on your deputies. A lot of the crimes that happen in Bourbon County, the suspect usually lives within the city limits of Fort Scott. And that brings the deputies back into the city to investigate. And once we investigate those suspects and question them, that leads us to other things. Drug activity and other criminal activity that takes place within the city limits. Just this week, I did a concealed carry with an individual. During the conversation with him, he had mentioned that he has contacted the police department several times in regards to a residence. He was not satisfied with that. I told him, what is your telephone number? And I'll be more than happy to have the deputy call you and contact you and discuss the issues. As the saying goes, Fort Scott sits in Bourbon County. And the guys that come to me and said, hey, we have tips if there's something going on within the city limits in Fort Scott, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is the police department working a case on that yet? And their answer is no. My deputies get out there and they patrol. They are seen out there. There have been several people that said since I've become sheriff, there are more deputies being seen out there than any other past sheriffs that held office. And I'm proud of that my deputies are seen. And on the flip side of that, there are people out there that don't want to see deputies out there because they think that it's an issue and that brings negativity towards their community. So it's a flip side. What do? What I do is we continue to patrol out there. We continue to solve the crimes. If the suspects come back, we have the residence or the address here in town, so be it. That's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And now you'll each have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Craig Rice.
I'm running for sheriff for several reasons. The reasons are still a lot of people out in the western part of the county told me that they don't see deputy presence. Doesn't mean they're not there, just means they don't see them. So are they there enough? I'm the kind of officer, back in my day, I'm the one that shook your doors at night on businesses to make sure nobody else is breaking in. I was a deputy that was out on patrol. I saved a woman that was shot 6 times at a home invasion. We caught the people doing it. It was actually over by Mulberry, Kansas. I saved a little girl from choking. I was invited to her wedding. We need more EMTs out there, deputy-wise, EMS-wise, to cover our county. Because right now, I said it before, Fort Scott has 24/7 police, 24/7 fire, 24/7 EMS. Out in the county, we have to wait. And the longer we have to wait, somebody's going to die, and they usually do. I've worked accident scenes to where cars are on top of people. You can't wait 30 minutes. So it's time that we start training our deputies
for AMS work and other things also. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Martin. Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event in the city of Fort Scott for allowing us to use this building. I, like many of you, read social media posts and listened to my running mates as they campaigned to take over my position as sheriff. Both have worthy ideas, however, I can assure you that their ideas can be taken to the county commission as a citizen for approval and work without either of them serving as the sheriff. Mr. Rice's idea about an ambulance service sheriff station in the county is very commendable. However, you may not be aware that the current Bourbon County ambulance service is in the red, not a little in the red, but my understanding it's a lot in the red. So in addition to the Bourbon County ambulance might take longer than getting the grant approved for the school resource officer. One more thing about the idea of emergency services and EMS, it does not currently fall under the command of the sheriff's office. And in my years of experience in this jurisdiction, we are equipped with highly trained and perfectly capable first responders within our county confines. Mr. Burke's ideas of a detective and more patrol and deputizing Fort Scott Police Department officers is very worthy as well. However, again, I bring to your attention to the fact that I just fought a good fight 2 weeks ago for a paid by grant position in our Uniontown School District, and it was going to be voted upon without my presence in the commission meeting. More deputies, more patrol have been my main mantra during my tenure, and it is yet to happen because the county commissioners control the financial purse strings. Mr. Burke also discussed deputizing Fort Scott Police Department officers and working together. That sounds great. However, the pay scales vary so much between the PD and the county, and I'm certain that no Fort Scott Police Department officer is willing to provide coverage in the county for less than an hour. Then they work their normal shift at the city of Fort Scott. Once again, the county commissioners control the pay wages. I listened to these folks asking you to vote for sheriff. Sometimes I cannot help but feel that you're being led down a rabbit hole.
And your 2 minutes are up.
Without enough information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Julie Saker.
You know, last year I decided I was going to run for sheriff. I don't have any law enforcement experience. The only experience I have is running businesses. I do paperwork without a computer. I have internet at my house. I live in the rural area. Like I said, I've lived here for 30 plus years. The reason why that I'm running for sheriff is I feel that we all need a change, not just in the city, but also in the rural areas. I've talked to a lot of people, they just feel they need a change. I feel that there needs to be a woman in the jail part, and they should have more women deputies. I think last time there was one was Cindy Gillespie or whoever. And she was a good one. But it's starting to be more and more women, in the men's jobs. So please vote for me. Like I said, it'll be a different career for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek Burke.
In closing, I would like to thank each and every individual of Bourbon County who has listened to and viewed this forum. Thank you for investing your time, money, and efforts into this community to make it a better place. I'm here to do the same. I'm Derek Burke. I'm honest, I'm trustworthy, I'm transparent, open, and willing to listen. I love talking to people. I'm respected amongst my peers because I have earned the respect through my actions and through my character. I spoke earlier about the issues with current sheriff's office. Promises, jail project, universal coverage of the county, and their SRO position. Budget as a whole, performance. The jail project went awry. The budget has been vastly expanded for many unneeded reasons. universal coverage on a day-to-day basis is not happening, and the SRO position was only recently installed after backlash. In the simplest of terms, it seems there's been many promises but little performance. I aim to change that. Thank you for your time. Vote Derek Burke for sheriff.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you all of you for your time tonight. As we acknowledge, this is a very limited format, so if you have questions, please contact these candidates and all the candidates that have been up here tonight. I know they would love to answer your questions in person. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Mark McCoy and Devin Talley, for your time, and to the City of Fort Scott for letting us use this facility. And as the granddaughter of 2 World War II veterans, I beg you, please exercise your right to vote on August 4th. Thank you.